Hi, this is Jay for SimplyMaya, and welcome to Volume 3 of our Surfing with the Alien series. For those of you who just sort of started to download this or are new to this series, the previous two volumes cover modelling and texturing using Maya, ZBrush and Photoshop. But this series, this part of it, this is going to be covering rigging. The rig that we're going to be creating really for this particular volume is not going to be super complicated. It's going to be more like just a very simple rig to get you going. We're still going to put control handles on stuff so you can grab stuff and rotate stuff, but it's just going to be very simple and not overly complicated. It's just going to be some of the methods that I've picked up over the years and just sort of applied to all my rigs and stuff, so I can use those for my small character poses or any animations that I've decided to do. So what we're going to do, we're going to jump straight in and we're going to hit spacebar, and that should give us our foreview like so. So I'm going to jump into the side view as well actually right now, and I'm just going to grab our guy and let's just select the layers, and hopefully we just need to apply him to this one. We've already got the eyeballs in there from one of the previous volumes that we did, so this is all just a continuation of those scenes. So that's good to go, and what we do need to do is template our guy. So just hit the middle box there and you can see you'll get an R for the reference layer and nothing for when it's just live, and you can select it, and also you get T for template, which is the one that we want. Okay, so we want our joint, so I've already got the joint tool already selected down here, but if you want to pick it up, if you go to skeleton in your animation module, so go to skeleton, joint tool, and do open up the menu set for it as well. Let's just reset that. So when it comes in, it's reset and your joint orientations are rotating around the X, Y, Z. But because we're doing the leg for this particular part, we want it set to none. This is just a preferred method that I use. You may want to do a little bit of research and have a look on joint orientations, but this is the method that I prefer to do for the legs, and I found it works best for me. So that's where we are with that. So let's get cracking and let's pop in our first joint, which is going to be the hip joint, like so. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit closer for us. And then the second joint down here by the knee, and then down here to the ankle, and then we're going to snap this to the grid for the heel, and then we're going to keep with the X key down so it snaps to the grid again for the ball of the foot, and then once again for the toe. And then what you want to do is hit enter, and that completes the first leg in our joint chain. Now the most important thing with rigs, well, apart from anything else as well in Maya, is that you really must name stuff. It's really important, because if you need to come to do expressions and stuff for your rigging, things like that, you need to really sort of have a grip on, organisation really. And the same goes if you're modelling as well. If you've got a scene with 100 objects in, you really should have them named, because if you work in a production environment, there's nothing worse than handing off a scene to somebody with no naming conventions whatsoever, and they open it up and they just don't know what they're looking at. So please do try and keep organised and name everything that you do within Maya. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to hit the outliner and perspective view, and I'm just going to zoom out and come down to our leg again, and hopefully in your outliner here you should have all the joints all the way down to the joint 6, which is our little toe joint just at the end there. And what we need to do is name these. So I'm going to double click, and I'm going to call this left. So this is going to be our left leg. So I'm going to call it LT underscore hip for the uppermost joint. So I'm going to hit enter. Then the next one is going to be left knee. So LT underscore knee, like so. And then the next one is LT, whoops, that's Y, LT underscore ankle. Okay, I do prefer to have, as you notice there, it's got a lowercase a. I do prefer to have capitals on every word, because it just helps to recognise it straight away without having to sort of squint and look at the lowercase stuff. So that's just my preferred way. Once again, always start the words off with a capital. So then we want LT underscore, that should be heel, enter, like so. And then we want LT underscore ball, and then last but not least, LT underscore toe. Job done. Okay, so that should be all your names. So there's the knee, the ankle, the heel, the hip, and so on. So let's close all that off. Okay, so what we're going to do now is jump into a front view. When this comes up, there we go. I could choose spacebar and go Maya front view there, but I'm just lazy like that. Okay, so let's grab this skeleton, and what we want to do, we want to move it to the left hand side of our character. So by invoking the move tool, we're just going to move that across like so. Okay, now this isn't too bad generally for the positioning of the joints, but if you do happen to have joints, this might be too high for example, or it might be too low and you think, oh, I need to edit this, how do I do that? Easy enough. With the move tool selected, hit insert on your keyboard, and what you can do is move the joints up or down. So there's good enough, that's good for me. And what you can do, you can go back to the side view. You know, you may want to think, oh, I'll move that forwards a little bit or something. So, you know, you can just move it a little bit or whatever. So it's all in place. So I'm just going to keep mine to about there and hit insert. Okay, so that's all done. And again, you could do that with the knee and the ankle and so on. You can do that throughout, but I think generally we're pretty good to go. Okay, so let's jump back into a front view. So with all our joints in place for the left leg, what we're going to do now is create a right leg. Now, if I just open up an outliner once again, that's from a shortcut I have on my keyboard. If you want to pick it up, just generally, you can go to the window menu up here and just pick out your outliner, and that will give you your sort of all your objects and stuff in your scene. So we've got our joints all there for our left leg. Now what we want to do is we want to create a new joint system for the right leg, and we really don't want to be drawing it all over again, so it means we'll have to line up all the joints and stuff. So cool thing here, what we've got, if you go to the skeleton menu, go to mirror joint and open up the menu there. As you can see, mine's already been set from previous works. So YZ is our mirroring across in the scene, and what we want to do is in the replacement names for duplicate joints, so we're going to be looking for left hand side joints, which are all the ones that we've already got with the LT, and we want to replace that LT with RT, which is going to stand for the right hand side. So once you've got those into position, just hit mirror, job done. So now we can come into our outliner here, open that out, and every single joint for the right hand side will have the correct name on it. So that's done. Okay, great stuff. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on back to the side view, and first of all we're going to put in a backbone all the way up through the body, through the neck, and through to the top of the head. And this is going to be done a little differently from the leg. And what I'd like to do is hit the joint tool, and I'm going to put everything now in the orientation to XYZ. So the joints will now point down the local sort of rotational axis that each joint has. Should be in X, I believe, if I'm right there. Will all point down the bone, so it should be good to go. Okay, so first of all, going to make a position, and what we'll do, we'll get it into a sort of position, sort of in line with the hip of our legs. So I'm going to hit just there and just zoom out a little bit, and we'll probably do perhaps 5 or 6 joints up to the base of the neck here. It depends, it's up to you what you want to do, but we'll do that. As I just mentioned with the orientation just here, later on what we will do when we come to doing skinning and stuff like that, we'll be able to check all this stuff, and then we'll be able to adjust those if things are not quite as they need to be. So we will be looking at that. So for now, just keep it as is, and let's crack on. So okay, first joint, second joint. So 3, 4, and 5. Let's do that one. Actually, we'll do those to there. That's good enough for there. Okay, and then we'll do. Let's see how we get on. One, 2, 3, 4. Actually, I'm going to stretch that just to there. Then what we'll do, we'll edit these after, and then we just want one big one for the top of the head. Okay, so again, I'm going to go in with my move tool, hit insert, and we can start to move these joints just a little bit, just to get them to work a bit more. That's not too bad. That's all pretty good. We can bring that one down just a bit more there. Okay. And that's all good to go. And what I'm going to do is just bring this one forward ever so slightly and down a little bit more. I'll just bring that forwards. So again, it's up to you where you want to position them, but obviously be sensible, because we want it to work, and you want to sort of get some nice rotations going on. The neck and the body will sort of have controls on to use with expressions, and a little control that you can twist the neck so it deforms nicely and stuff like that. So keep an eye on that for later on. So we're going to hit insert. That's done. So now what we've got to do, this one's not going to be as easy to rename. So what we're going to do is we're going to name the first joint. Let's just open everything out. So we've got quite a few going on here now. So we'll just open this set out. Okay, and there we go, 12 joints. Okay, so joint 1 will always be called the root. This is where everything on the character is going to be connected up, including the legs, and this will enable us to get some nice movement once we get the legs and IK handles, and everything should hopefully begin to follow. So I'm going to hit root for that, and then joint 1, we're going to call that back 1, so I'll just call it B_1. Okay, enter, and then B2, and we'll do that all the way up to the base of the neck here. So B3, B4, B5. So the next one should now be neck 1. So we'll call it N_1, and same again, N2, and then N_3, _4, and then this one we'll call head base, and this one we'll call head top. Okay, all done. So that's all that named. Now what we want to do now is we want to join everything up from the hips to the root joint, so everything's really nice, so everything's all joined together. So what we're going to do, we're going to do that. So we're going to jump in to our front view, like so, and with our joint tool selected, just press down once and name that pelvis underscore, or actually we'll go the other way, let's do that, LT underscore pelvis. Okay, and then again, as we did before, mirror joint, left to right, Y to Z, mirror joint, job done, right pelvis, there we go. Okay, so we need to connect these up now. Very, very simple. First, select your hip, shift select the pelvis, and hit P for parent. Done. And we'll do the same with this one. Done. And then all you want to do is go all the way back to the root, and once again, same technique, job done. So that's everything done there. And now, as you can see, all the hierarchy is under the root joint for the moment. All the joint chains are under the root joint, all the way there. So there's our legs, they'll be inside there. Easy as. Okay, all good to go. Okay, So now comes a smaller, well, I say a smaller task. It's more of a bigger task actually. It's a bit more fiddly. So what we need to do is, first of all, I'm going to move our joints there. As you can see, we didn't move those back, so I'm just going to grab that with the move tool in the side. We're going to grab this guy with the move tool, insert. I'm just going to straighten him up like so. Okay, and we're going to grab this guy, and I'm going to snap this, hopefully, to the same one. Hit insert, job done. Okay, that's just a small minor mistake there by myself, easily correctable, but I think it's good for you to see some mistakes and how you can get out of that before we get too carried away with stuff. But it's always good to learn that way, I think. So it's something to keep an eye on. Okay, so as I was saying, we're going to come to a little bit more of a fiddly bit now with the joint chain. And what we're going to be doing is IK handles for the legs and the feet. And these really are just about, IK handles are solvers really, doing calculations and stuff for joint orientations when you move those around basically. If you want to do some more information on those, check out the My Help files, always really good, or check online, give you a bit more of an explanation there. But really what we need to do is get some IK handles in, and that will start to give us a helping hand with the leg rig. For this exercise, I'm only going to do the one side, and then what we'll be doing in the following chapters is we'll come to the right hand side, and that will already be done. So for each of the exercises we'll concentrate on one side, then you can go away and you can do both, and hopefully that will help you learn without me having to constantly repeat myself in the tutorial over and over and over, okay, to do the same thing. But with every first part, everything will be completed from one side to the other, so you'll be good to go. So for this side, we're going to be doing the left leg. So what we want to do is come up to skeleton, go to IK handle tool, and open that out. If we hit reset, you can see it's got IK SC solver. This is a single chain solver, but again, preferences for myself, I'd like to use the RP because this gives you a rotational plane up here on the hip and for the knee, and allows you to put a control called a pole vector constraint, enabling you to sort of give movement to the knee left or right later on. So I like to use that between the hip and the ankle, and then what I also do is I put an SC solver for the rest of it, so it just makes my life a little easier. It's just something I prefer to do. Okay, so with the IK RP solver done, we're going to click our IK tool on the top of the hip there, and we're going to create an IK handle to the ankle. As you can see there, it's put our IK handle there. There's the rotational plane solver just up there, just as I mentioned a minute ago, but we'll be connecting this up a lot later on. And yeah, okay, let's carry on. Okay, so we want to call this one, we're going to call this the left ankle IK. So let's jump back into our outliner. So there you go, IK handle 1. So I'm going to call it left underscore ankle, whoops, again, rename, ankle, capital letter, ankle, and then IK on the end of that. Okay, job done. I'm going to switch back to my IK SC solver. You don't have to do this, it's up to you. Again, as I said, this is a preference thing, but hopefully it will help you get along. So what we want to do now is create an IK handle from the ankle to the ball joint. So I've already clicked on that. Click to the ball joint. That's done. So again, name it as you go. Left underscore ball IK. Done. Okay. Okay, so now we want to do another one from the ball to the tip of the toe. And hopefully that'll work. There we go. Alright, so that's done. So again, left underscore toe underscore, no, not underscore, just IK, getting carried away my underscores there, job done. Okay, now with that still selected, okay, this is where it all starts to get a little bit fun, so you've got to keep an eye on everything. I'm going to go through it slowly because it can get a little bit sort of tricky. So with the toe IK still selected, hit Control G to group it to itself. Okay, and as you can see now, we've got a group node, but what we're going to do, we're going to call this left toe group. Okay, so LT, capital LT underscore toe GRP. Actually, we'll put an underscore in there, GRP. Okay. Okay. Now what we're going to do now is we've created this toe group, but what we need to do is make sure that the group's center pivot is centered with the actual group itself, but we also need to get it onto the ball of the foot there. So you could press center pivot like so, which is really easy. Just going to undo that, but for an even quicker workaround, hit insert on your keyboard, V, and just snap it to the ball joint of the foot. So for the left toe group, snap the pivot point to the ball joint. Okay, hit insert, job done. Okay, so now what we want to do is select the IK handle for the ankle. Once again, hit Control G to group it. Made a nice new group there. So double click on that, rename, underscore ankle, underscore GRP. Okay, and again we're going to snap that to the ball joint. So insert, V on the keyboard, snap to there. Okay. What we want to do? We want to hit insert. That's it. So now we should have left ankle group, left toe group, left ball group. Okay. And now what we want to do? We want to grab the three of those. You can do this as well up in the hypergraph as well. If you don't like to have the outliner open, you can choose to do this up in the hypergraph, and it will show you exactly the same thing but on a bigger scale. I'll just show you that. And this will give us all our nodes, and if I hit F, these are the nodes that we're working on. So this will give you every joint, everything that we've just done all together that's actually in our scene. Okay, and this is what we're working on at the moment. But I'm not going to use that. I just prefer to use the outliner for now. When things get tricky, then which they will do, I'm sure, later on, because we have things called end effectors, and they don't appear necessarily in the outliner, so it's always good to go in and grab those from the hypergraph. But don't worry about that now, but I'm just making you aware of that. So with the left ball IK selected, left toe group selected, and left ankle group selected, all together, hit Control G to group those. Okay, and then call that left underscore toe pivot underscore group. Okay, so that's now done. So what you need to do now is grab the pivot, so insert, hit V on the keyboard, and snap that to the toe. Hit insert, job done. Okay. Okay, now with the toe pivot group selected, group it to itself. Okay, once again, rename. And this time, this one's going to be for the heel. This is going to be a pivot for the heel. So we're going to go LT underscore heel pivot underscore group. Done. What we need to do now, hit insert on the keyboard, snap that to the heel, hit insert, job done. So now that gives us a rotation actually onto the heel of the foot for our IKs. So now, with that all selected, we need to group it again, okay, and we're going to call this left foot underscore group. Done. And with this, for the last time, insert, V key, snap that to the ball joint, hit insert, and that's the setup for that whole leg all done. So let's open it out, and we've got all of these IK handles, all these pivot groups. They're essentially pivot groups that's going to enable us to control the foot. Okay, so now you can grab the foot like so, and you can do these sort of rotations and stuff. You can move that all around in the scene, so it's all pretty good. Okay, so we're good to go. Excellent. Okay, and the other thing is if we can grab the rotational tool, so it enables us to do this as well. At the moment, this isn't, I won't worry about this too much going on here because we're going to be adding some other controls a little bit later on. Okay, so that should conclude this very first chapter in our character rigging. In the next chapter we're going to be looking at creating the arms, and also we're going to put some controls on the feet as well. Okay, so for now, I hope you've enjoyed that, and hope it's not been too difficult. I shall see you in part 2, so thanks for now. Hi, and welcome to part 2. In the last chapter we set up all our backbone, our pelvis and our legs and our IK handles for our legs and feet and stuff, and also we made all our little pivot points and everything for our foot rotations, and everything for the toes, the ball of the foot and the heel. As I said I would do, I've gone in and I've done the right leg as well, so that's all done. But what I've done now as well is I've set up a foot control, so we can now rotate our foot backwards and forwards. It gives us a bend when we want to come and do some animation. So for this chapter, that's what we're going to do. We're going to be looking at that and adding the controls for the left foot. Also what we're going to be doing is we're going to set up the arm as well in this chapter, and also its controls for its elbows, its wrists and the shoulder joints as well. So a little bit to get through, so let's get cracking. So first of all, what I'd like to do is if we have a look at our foot here, so we want to go to our left foot, and what we need to do is add an attribute, and the attribute we're going to do is we're going to call it foot roll. And if we just click on the right foot group here, you can see I've already got one that's already in there. Okay, and all this green is where we've got this the foot control parent constrained to the actual right foot node. So if we jump onto the left foot group here in our outliner, and what we're going to do, we're going to go up to modify, and we go down to add attribute. Okay, so let's just jump in here. Pretty much we're going to leave everything on the default, and what we're going to do, we're going to call this foot roll, so F-O-O-T, and then roll like so. Okay, so that's the name we're going to give it. Leave it to keyable, leave the data type to float, just leave it pretty much as standard. So what we want to do now is give it some values, and the first value in the minimum channel here is we're going to do -5, and this is what that's going to be. That's going to be the heel rotation backwards, so as if you're lifting your feet up off the floor but leaving your heel down. So that's that one. The maximum, which is 10, is going to be the complete foot rolling forward all the way to the tip of the toes, and our default value is going to be 0, which is of course our foot flat on the floor doing absolutely nothing. So we're going to add that, and hopefully in the channel box you'll see our foot roll attribute appear, and if you just highlight that, you can see that it will go to our -5 values. I'm using the middle mouse button here, by the way. It will go to the -5 value for the heel, all the way through to the 10, +10 if you like, for the foot lifting up. So we're going to drop that back to 0, like so. Now what we want to do is we want to add these attributes to this foot, so we get all the whole of the foot sort of rolling forwards and backwards. So I'm just going to open out the left foot node itself. Okay, so that's all we pretty much need for that. And then I'm just going to deselect this, and if we go to our animation menu set, and we go to animate, and what we're going to do, we're going to open up this little menu here called set driven key, and open up set. Okay, like so. And what this is going to enable us to do excuse me, is load up our foot group with the foot roll attribute and we're going to load that into this top section. And what that's going to be, the foot roll is going to be the driver for all the pivot points that we set in the last chapter. So when we use that foot roll attribute, our foot's going to rotate at the various pivot points around the X rotation, and so we can roll it backwards and forwards nicely. So let's do that. So we're going to grab left foot group and go down to the little box here that says load driver and load driver. And then while that's still highlighted, just hit foot roll. Okay, so our left foot group with our attribute of foot roll is now the driving force, if you like, for the rest of the joint chain that we're about to load up. So now what we want to do is grab our left heel pivot, our left toe pivot, left toe group, left ankle, and left foot group, and just load that into the driven section like so. Alright, I know I've done that in a strange order, but believe me, it's worth doing these things in this order, and then that way you should be good to go. So what we're going to do, we're going to highlight every single one of these. Okay, we're going to select rotate X, because that's the axis that our bones are actually going to rotate around in world space when we come to do the foot roll. So with all of this selected like so, this is the left heel pivot group, left toe pivot group, left toe group, left ankle group, and the left foot group as a whole with its rotate X all selected, the left foot group up here obviously, and the foot roll attribute, and just simply hit key. And up here in the channel box on the right hand side, you'll now see that we've now got a key set for our rotation axis of X for our bones, for our joints. So what we first want to do is we need to select our left foot group like so, and that will now be highlighted up in our channel box here. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the heel rotation first, which is, like I was saying, the heel is going to rotate backwards on itself. So what we're going to do is going to put that -5 value in that we set on the attribute itself. Okay, so enter that, and then we're going to go to the left heel pivot group, and what we're going to do, we're going to set the rotation here to around -25. Okay, so I'm going to hit -25, enter that. So as you can see, our heel's now gone backwards, and simply just hit key. Okay, easy, no problem. Okay, so now what we want to do is select our left foot group again, go to our foot roll. Now this time we want to put it to 5, so this is just basically going to be flat again. So if we go to 5, that's our key flat, and now what we want to do is select the ankle group just here, and up in its X rotation we want to hit that to around sort of 40. Okay, so just going to hit that. See, so now that brings up the ankle coming up from the ball joint on our skeleton there. So I'm going to key that. So now that's done. Okay, so again we're going to select our left foot group, and now what we're going to do is we're going to put the foot roll to 10 like so, and then we're going to go to the left toe pivot. Okay, and we're going to set the rotation now to around 20, and as you can see, that's done as well. And all I'm going to do now is key that. Job done, no problem whatsoever. Okay, now to test it, just simply select, just go back to your outliner just for safety's sake, and then just click on the foot roll attribute there in the channel box and middle mouse, and you should have this nice foot roll in motion. Okay, now we have one small problem that we do need to assess, and that is, if I just close all this off, let's just have a quick look at this in a sort of side view here, like so. What I'll do, I'll just turn off our little dude. So if I just quickly roll this, as you can see, as the heel lifts up, the ball of the foot is already starting to lift. Okay, and if I look at this one, it doesn't lift till it gets to a certain point. You see? So let's just put that back to 0. I'll just show you again. So as this lifts, it gets to about its maximum sort of rotation, and then it starts to pull up from the ball joint there. And if we just go back to our left foot group and jump on our foot roll, the minute we start to drag this, it starts to go up. And your foot doesn't actually work like this. You know, the ball of your foot does actually stay on the ground. And what we need to do, we need to address this. Okay, so if we go put that back to 0, and what we need to do is go to Window, open up an animation editor, okay, and open up the graph editor. When that comes up, there we go. And we need to find the left toe pivot, and there it is, and we just want to hit the rotate X, okay, and go View. We're going to frame all, like so. So as you can see, the rotation, what it's saying is starting, the curve is starting here, okay. So what we need to do is grab this, and we just need to bring it along and down to frame 5. So if you just grab that and just middle mouse, and it should snap to each of those frames, okay, like so. So now let's just hide this out of the way. If I go to foot roll, that now comes up and adjusts very nicely indeed. Okay, so that is that foot rotation pretty much complete. Alright, okay, so what do we need to do now? We need to get this guy in. Now I've chosen to do it this way because it can help give you a couple of ways of doing things. I mean, we didn't necessarily have to add the foot roll attribute to the actual foot group node itself. We could have easily have bought this controller in and just you know, parented that up to the joint system, to the around on the foot, and we could have just added the attribute to that. But I've done it this way, so you have two ways of doing stuff. You can, like I say, you can either do it from this, or you can either use this separately, or what we're going to do is just link the two up. So you've got a couple of options there to play with. You don't necessarily have to do it a certain way. So you know, you can say, okay, I don't actually want that controller in there, I'd rather not, so you don't have to bring that in. So therefore your attribute's already there on your foot, which is great. Or you might say, I want the controller in there, so therefore what you can do, you can skip adding the foot roll attribute to the foot, you know, the left foot node or whatever node it is. You can skip that, you can add it to that, and then just do the whole exercise that we've just done. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to File and Import, bring in our foot controller. Okay, there it is, foot control. Okay, there it is, just come into our scene. So I'm going to call this left foot control. It's already got its name, which is great. Okay, so this hasn't got any attributes on whatsoever. So what we need to do, if we go to Modify, Add Attribute, let me just check the name on this one. So we've done it like that. Okay, let me just copy that. Okay, so go Modify with this selected. Add Attribute, I'm just going to paste this in like so, and change that to LT. Okay, and then hopefully we should be able to just leave that like that, because this is obviously going to feed from the attributes all the way through from the left foot group. So I'm just going to add that to that, and then what we're going to do is going to open up General Editors, open up our Connection Editor. As you can see, our left foot control is already loaded. There's the attribute. I'm going to grab our left foot group, reload right, scroll all the way down and to our foot roll node just down there, and as you can see, that's already keyed up and ready to go. Okay, so if we grab that now, we should be able to do that. Now, one last thing, what we do need to do is just check the center pivot for our left foot control. So as you can see there at the moment, it's stuck at 0, 0, 0 in world space, and what we do need to do is just get the center pivot there and just bring that over to the ball joint. We're just going to parent the whole thing. We're going to use the parent constraint. We're going to parent that to the ball joint there. So I'm just going to hit Insert, hopefully. So Insert, and with the V key press down, just going to snap that to the ball joint, and I'm going to hit Insert once again. Okay, so that's all good to go. So what we're going to do, we're going to grab our left foot control, our left foot group, and if we go to Constrain and hit Parent, and that should all be connected up now, so we're all good to go. Alright, so everything's all placed nicely, and we've got the best of both worlds. You can use a foot controller that way, or you can just use it from the left foot group itself, which is there. But because this is keyed out, because of the way we've done it, that's keyed out, so you don't need to select that. You can just select the control. Okay, so that's all done. Right, so moving on, what we're going to do, we're going to jump onto our arms now, and we're going to start sort of getting all that kind of stuff set up as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to save my work. Okay, so that's all saved, that's all done for us. So what we're going to do now is we are now need to go back to our foreview, like so. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come into, actually we'll go to the front view, which I think will be better for the moment. Okay, and we're going to draw a joint chain just down here. So what we need to do is go to our skeleton, go to joint tool, open that up. That's all selected, ready to go. And what we're going to do is make sure it's on X, Y, Z. So everything's going to point down the X on the joint for the time being. So first of all, just going to make our little, let's pop a joint just in here. This is going to be for the sort of the collar, clavicle sort of area. And then I'm just going to move that to about there. It depends on where your model is, really. I mean, this is a kind of a strange sort of model, really. I mean, I think essentially I probably could have brought the shoulder up a little bit, but I'm not overly concerned, really, for this exercise. I mean, you know, you can perfect your own stuff and everything else. So I'm just going to go in now. I'm going to draw a shoulder joint as well now. Okay, like so. And holding the shift key down, I'm just going to do another one. So it constrains this completely horizontal. And we're going to do one to the elbow, like so. And then we're going to make a forearm one as well, like this. And lastly, one for the wrist. So I'm going to probably put that around there. And then simply hit enter. Okay. Now what we want to do is check in all the views and just make sure that everything is in the place that we want. And first of all, I'm not really happy with the way that sits in there, so I'm just going to grab this. As I said before, I'm going to use the insert key, just going to bring this down just a little bit. I'm just going to zoom in just to make sure we keep everything fairly straight. And again, with this one, same again. And this one, we'll just bring this guy down, so it's not too bad. And what we could do actually is I'm just going to hit insert, move the whole lot like so. Hit insert, and just going to move this back up just a little bit, about there. So it's almost in line with this one here, because what we'll do very shortly is we'll parent that up to that. Okay, so I'm going to hit insert, and what we're going to do, we need to go to the top view, and as you can see, it's not in an ideal place, so we need to come back and just get everything in a roundabout sort of nice way. Okay, and then in the side view, as you can see here, it's not super great. So I've left the rotations, as I said before, I've left everything where we've drawn them, because I knew we may have to edit some bits and pieces. So again, with the insert key selected, just sort of move your joints around until you're sort of happy with their orientation, and we should be okay. So I'm going to leave that there. Excuse me. And what we're going to do now is what we always have to do with this sort of stuff, and that's rename it. So we're just going to jump back over to our outliner with everything open, and so we're going to call this left collar, I think. So we'll call that LT underscore collar, and this one LT underscore shoulder, whoops, underscore shoulder, and then we want LT underscore elbow, and then forearm, and lastly the wrist. Okay, So that's all good to go. So we're pretty good there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to parent this guy to the rest of the body. So I'm going to grab that section there, just hit P. So now we're all joined up. So that's all good. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to create an IK handle for our character. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to use the RP solver, very similar to what we used with on the leg. We're going to use this for the arm. But what we're going to do, we're going to start the IK here, and we're going to end it on the forearm. And then what we're going to do is we're going to push that along the actual end effector of the IK handle, and then once it's positioned here, we're going to drag it and move it to the end of the wrist. But before we do that, what we need to do is grab our elbow. If we go to Control A and just go to our attribute, our control box here, channel box, I beg your pardon, and if we hit E to bring out the rotation tool, and if we just bring this forward, this is going to help us with our IK bending and stuff like that. So I think sort of 60 degrees forward is fine. You can probably do a little less if you wanted. And then what you need to do is if you go right click and set preferred angle. So this is the preferred angle for the bend in the elbow. So our IK handle has something to sort of calculate, stuff like that. It has something to solve, you know, the bend, and it won't flip backwards and all that kind of thing. So, okay, so then just simply set the rotation back to 0, and to check that that's worked, right click again, go assume preferred angle, and it should bend back to the sort of 60 degrees or whatever it was that you've just set. So that's all good to go. Okay, so we need an IK handle. So let's go back up to skeleton, IK handle tool, open up the menu for it. There it is, and we're on RP solver already because that's what we had when we did the leg. So we're going to just simply click on the shoulder, I believe. Yep, we are. And then the forearm joint, click that there, and then don't forget to label it. So left arm, left underscore arm IK, like so. And what we need to do now is we need to open up the hypergraph, because what we're going to do is open up, we're going to grab the end effector, and we're going to press down the insert key and move it and snap it to the wrist itself. Okay, so I'm going to grab my move tool. As you can see, there it is, and that's all ready to go. And what I'm going to do is go to Window, Hypergraph, and just going to hit F so it frames this up. And let's just come out a little bit more, and let's just graph that now. So hopefully we should get our end effector come up, and there it is. And if we just come back, as you can see, our move tool's already in place. So as you can see here, let's rename that actually. We'll call it LT underscore arm effector. Whoops. Just so we know what that is, because everything else is pretty much labelled up. So we'll just keep that as is. And again, you do the same for the right hand side, which you can do afterwards. And I will make sure that's all set up for our next chapter. Okay, so with that all selected, hit the insert key, V key, and snap it to the wrist. Hit insert, that's done. Okay, so let's just go back over. Okay, and what we want to do now is grab our IK handle itself, not the end effector, and hopefully you should be able to bend and move your guy around. Okay, so that's all done. Okay, so now what we need to do in order to control these particular parts of our arm, let me just show you a few bits. You can see we get this sort of flipping. What we need to do is make what we call a pole vector constraint, and we're going to have to grab this area here, and then sort of bring it a controller in that I've already made. We're going to place that behind the elbow, and with the IK selected and the controller for the elbow, we're going to go to constrain. There's a little command here called pole vector, and that's going to help us constrain that joint, stop it flipping out. So you'll have complete control of that sort of the orientation, if you like, of the shoulder there. So let's do that. So we're going to go to File, going to go to Import. Okay, I've already got it made up. So elbow PVC, which is pole vector control. Going to go Import. Going to bring that in, and it should be hiding down here somewhere. And there he is. And as you can see, I've already got colours and stuff put on. What we'll do later on for the left-hand side and the right-hand side, we'll give them different colours because it just makes sense, and you can put these things on different layers so you know what belongs to what, things like that, and we'll be able to hide joints and IK handles, so we're not grabbing stuff and things like that. So what we're going to do is going to hit W and we're going to hit V, and we're just going to snap it all the way up to the elbow. Okay, like so, and we're going to move that back. Okay, so hopefully if we go to the front view in Maya, it should be pretty much centered behind our elbow joint, which it is. Okay, so that's good. Right, so with that moved into position, let's put that there. Now the first thing we need to do is freeze the transformations, because we don't want any sort of translation effect on it, because if you have to animate this and you want to put it back to 0, you don't want it having any translations whatsoever, so it could get all very, very confusing. So that's done. So we're going to call this, as you can see, the name convention is all a bit funky at the moment, so we're going to call this left_elbow PVC. Okay, and what we want to do now is we're going to grab this and we're going to group it to itself. Okay, so let's grab that. It's grouped to itself, so we're going to call this left elbow and we'll just call it a control. Okay, like so. And what we can do with that group node is we can parent that to the skeleton, so if you do come to animate and stuff, everything follows your character around, which is ideal, which is what you want, really. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to grab the IK handle, and we need to grab our control, and we need to go to constrain, and we need to go pole vector. And I thought I just did that. Okay, so maybe the other way round. Let's try again. Pole vector. There we go. So that's all good. Alright, so if I grab that, and hopefully we should see things start to move around, etc. Okay, so just need to open up the outliner here, and with the left elbow control selected, we need to center the pivot on that as well, like so. And all we're going to do is grab, let's find a suitable joint, and what we'll do, we'll parent the group node under one of these. So what we'll do, that one's pretty much out the way, so we'll grab that guy there and we'll hit P. So he'll now move around with our character when you come to animate. So as you can see there, I've selected the root joint, and hopefully it should all follow suit, so that's pretty good. Okay, all good to go. Right then, so the next thing we need to do is bring in a wrist controller. And what we've got, once again, we've got a cube that's already made up that we're going to bring in. So wrist control, bring that in. There it is, coming down the bottom there. Whoops, let's go and grab that guy. Okay, there he is. And what we're going to do, we're going to snap that to our wrist joint. Okay, so going to go hit the V key and snap that all the way up there, like so. Okay, if you want to, you can scale it up, but do make sure you freeze its transformations. In fact, I think I'll do that now. Let's make that 2. We'll double its size. Oh, it's a bit big, 1.5 then. Okay, so that's readable. And then what we need to do is freeze the transformations out on that. And then what we'll do is we'll grab that. Okay, call it LT_ wrist control. Okay, so that's done. So what we need to do now is select the left arm control, which is already selected, and we need to grab our IK handle, which is just in there somewhere. Okay, and what we want to do, we want to constrain this to the actual joints and everything, so when we move this around, everything follows suit quite nicely. So if we go constrain and point, so that's all done. So then the other thing we want to do, we need to select the left wrist joint, which is just there, okay, and then shift select the controller, okay, and then go to constrain and orient. So we should put an orient constraint on there, okay, and there we go. So now we can grab that. This is all set to 0, and hopefully, you know, we can just move this guy around. He's looking pretty good, giving it large there. Okay, great. So we'll 0 that back out. So all back to 0. Okay, that's all done. Okay, so one last thing that we need to do is we need to make a collar control. So we're going to bring it in just up here, and what we'll have to do for the collar itself is that's going to work off a rotation, and what we'll do once we get everything into place in the next chapter, what we'll do, I'll show you how to hide out your sort of channels so you don't go around picking the wrong bits and pieces for it. So okay, so we're going to bring this in, so we're going to go import, and we should have a collar control. There we go. We'll bring that in. Should be a sort of an arrow thing that I've created. There it is, just up there. Okay. So we're going to hit W. We're going to bring that up all the way. Again, using the V key, I'm going to snap that to the collar, like so. And I'm going to move it back. Okay, like there. And what we're going to do now is I'm just going to freeze the transformations out on this one. Okay, and I'm just going to move it up like so. Okay, just so that's visible. So if you're, you know, if you're in a front view, for example, let's show you this. So if you're in a front view on your character, you know, you can see it. It's easily accessible, and you'll be able to rotate this and make the clavicle move around. So, okay, so let's jump back to our perspective. Like so. Okay, and what we want to do now is actually grab the pivot itself and snap that to the collarbone there. So again, I'm just going to jump into a front view. Okay, I'm going to hit insert and hit V, and I'm just going to use the axis here and just snap it into place to make sure it's all good. Okay, and we're going to hit insert. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we are going to go back to our perspective. I keep forgetting about that bit there. Okay, so we're going to go back to our perspective, and what we're going to do, we're going to group it to itself, and Control G, like so. Going to center the pivot. Okay, and again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the pivot point exactly down to the collar area. So I'm going to insert that, hit V, and hopefully if I just jump to my front view once again, that should all be there. That's good. So back to the perspective, and I'm going to hit insert, and let's just open this up. So we want to rename that first. So we're going to call this left collar control. Okay, LT, whoops, Y, LT underscore collar control, hit enter, and then LT underscore collar GRP. Now that, again, that node will hopefully get parented under that guy there. So okay, so that's done. So what we want to do now is grab this guy and shift select the collar, I beg your pardon, and then just basically do another parent constraint to that. Okay, so then now when we rotate this, you have a collar control. Okay, so it's just a case of getting all this lined up. Actually, what we'll do as well is if we hit insert and we'll just snap that rotation. Whoops, we might have to take that out of there. I will fix that. Let's take the parent constraint off. Let's undo all of that. Okay, alright, so let's grab that and we'll move the constraint to there. So we have the rotation, sorry, to there. Insert that back. Okay, so and then now with that selected, the collar selected, constrain and parent, and hopefully this time we should. There we go. So all it is really is a selection control for that area. So that really concludes this chapter. I hope that was alright for you. Can get a little bit fiddly, as you can see, but providing you do everything in the right order, freeze out all your transformations on stuff, and you should be absolutely ready to go and start sort of putting all these sort of bits and pieces. So just remember, freeze your transforms out, rename stuff, and center the pivots, etc., stuff like that, and you should be fine. So we'll leave that there. The next chapter, what we'll do, we're going to start building the hand joints up, which is a little bit more complex, but shouldn't take no time at all really. And then what we can do when we do that, we'll be having a look at the rotational axis of the joints and stuff, and how to correct those. And those will then, the method for that, you'll then be able to apply to any other joint really, especially the back, which will be bending and twisting and stuff like that. So all of that sort of thing will need to sort of be looked at, just to make sure everything's working right. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next part. Okay, welcome to part 3. In the last section, what we did was we finished our foot off by adding the foot roll control, the foot roll attributes and stuff. So now we've got a nice rolling foot there. We also added the joint chain for our arms and stuff, and we added all the controls for the shoulders, the elbows, and also the wrist as well, and also adding the point and orient constraints. In between the last chapter and now, I've gone in and I've done the right hand side as well, exactly the same. So that's all good to go, so everything's all rigged up there. The only difference is we've now got red arrows as opposed to the original yellow arrows, and I've done this to just differentiate the left hand side controls to the right hand side. And the way to do that is simply select your arrow, go down to Object Display in the Attribute Editor, open that out, open up Drawing Overrides, and hopefully it should still be ticked from the yellow colour, and then just simply go in and adjust the slider to whatever colour you desire for your controls. So with that done, we'll leave that there. So that's all good. So for the rest of this chapter, all we're going to be doing is just setting up our joints for the hands, and we're going to do this on the left hand side first, and then obviously again we'll repeat the same process for the right hand side in between the chapters, so I haven't got to keep repeating myself for you, as I've said before. So before we do carry on doing that, what I want to point out is that now we're in this position to do the hands. If you look at the thumb, it's not really in an ideal position for a rig, and if you look at your own hands, if you relax your hand, your thumb tends to sort of point more forward rather than sort of almost like 90 degrees straight down. The reason it's like this is obviously because we modelled it like this, and it's easy to make for easier modelling. But now what we're going to do is, before we do jump into creating the skeleton, is we're going to position the thumb into a bit more of a sort of a relaxed state and allow for a better joint setup for the skeleton. So let's hide everything but the polygons. So bring the polys back up, and we're going to jump back into our layer palette, and we're just going to turn off template, and I'm going to grab our mesh and just hit 1 on the keyboard. So it's just a little bit easier to manipulate the polys and the points. So, and we'll get a bit more of a better feedback that way as well, and you can see where the points are sitting instead of pushing and pulling them around in the smooth view, because you don't get a very good representation of how they're going to sit. So we're going to do it all at the base level here, and let's carry on with that. So first of all, I'm going to right click, and we're just going to select some verts, over the thumb itself. Double click on the rotate tool and just make sure that your reflection setting is switched to on, and whatever axis that you've worked at, it's according to which way your model is facing. In my case, the reflection axis is across the X, so then that means the other side, my other thumb, is selected as well, and that saves me having to do the same job twice. So with that done, hit D, and I'm just going to move the pivot point to somewhere just sort of at the base of the thumb there, like so. And all we're going to do is just going to rotate this guy forwards and just bring him down just a little bit more to about there. And also, again, just going to grab him up to about there with the pivot, and I'm just going to rotate him forwards as well. So it's a bit more of a natural kind of look for the thumb itself. And as ever, you will need to tweak it. I know this is a bit of a pain, having just done all the modelling and stuff like that, but this is one of the things that you will come across if you do end up working for a company, and things can change for rigging purposes. So it's just one of those things to be aware of. So although this is a minor tweak, it's nothing to worry about too much, and I think it's just something worth learning as well, pointing out to you. So let's just get that all into place. You may need to tweak your UVs, so you might need to go and just have a quick look at those and see how they are. I'm pretty happy with the way that's looking, actually, for now. So that's all good to go. Okay. So now we've got our thumb in a better position, and just squash that down a little bit as well, and just bring that up. So we're all good to go. So with that in a better position, I think we're now ready to get on with drawing our joint chains. So in a top view, as you can see now, it's facing forward a little bit better, but do check your own. It's always worth it. And obviously you can see as well the thumb's got a slight twist to it as well, and if you look at your own, your nail does face back towards you in that respect as well. So okay, so let's crack on. So I'm going to hit 4 on the keyboard, and we're going to jump straight into wireframe mode, and just going to hit F8 and just bring our skeleton back out as well, and template the model. Okay, so we're ready to go. So what we're going to do is what we could do is click on this to complete the chain link as we go. But because we've got orientations and stuff and point constraints, it does sometimes tend to make it a little bit difficult, and this does flip out. So we're going to start our first joint here, and then we're going to just bring it all the way around and then into the index finger around there. And then what we'll do, we'll just have to move everything up into position, and then we'll parent that all back up, and we should be good to go. And by doing it this way as well, you can then also mirror the joints across for the right hand side as well. So we'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone in this particular exercise, doing it that way. Okay, so first of all I'm going to place my first joint sort of around here, and this is really the setup here for our alien's hand. The setup for the joint chain here is very similar to how I would do a joint chain for the small finger or the pinky finger on a human hand. So I would begin to do the joint here and come all the way around and into the little finger. But in this case, we're using it for the alien character's main fingers, because he doesn't have anything else. So we're going to bring that to about there, and we're going to put one on the knuckle there, one on the knuckle there, and one at the tip as well, just there. And just to point out as well, just before I go any further, just do make sure your joint orientation is set to XYZ as well. So all the joints, the x-axis for the joint will always point away from the bone or down the bone. So that's all good. So before I crack on, I'm just going to move this guy around, just bring him back just a little bit, like so, and just bring that in just to about there. Okay, so that's all good. And actually we'll do that one as well. We'll just bring him forward ever so slightly, and same with this guy. Okay, so now it's got a nice sort of smooth flow going into the outer finger or the index finger, whatever this hand design is. Okay, so that's done. So again, we want to create another joint chain, and we're going to just go down, and we're just going to get these into position for here as well. Now I'll hit enter. And first of all, what we're going to do is going to rename these before we go any further. So I'm just going to jump over to my channel box and just going to rename these. So this is going to be called left palm 1, okay, and left palm 2, LT underscore palm 2, and then we've got, we'll just call this index, so LT underscore index 1, whoops, missed out a letter, so let's grab that, put that in there, index 1, and what we'll do, we'll copy that, grab that joint, paste, name that 2, and again here, Control V, name that 3, and lastly, Control V, and we'll call the index end. Done. Okay, and this one we'll call it LT underscore 4 for forefinger, and we'll just put a 1 on the end of that. Job done. Okay, so again, I'm just going to copy that, Control C, select the next joint, Control V, and just name that 2 on the end. And again with this one, Control V, put 3 on the end of that. That's done. And again, we'll call this one end, END. Done. Okay. So with those done, what we can do is we can grab those 2 joints, sets of joints, and again, what we'll do, we'll mirror those across to the other side here. And so we go skeleton, and if we go to mirror joint and make sure everything that's got left written on it now becomes right, so replace with RT, so mirror, so that should all be in place. That's RT41, there we go, that's all done. And we'll mirror this one across as well, so skeleton, mirror joint, so that's all done as well, so that's good. In fact, what I'll do, I'll undo that actually, because there's one thing I haven't done that we do need to do, and it's grab both sets of these, come to our front view, and as you can see, because we created them in the top view, they're actually placed on the grid themselves. So we just need to bring those up, and we just need to correct a little bit of orientation on the joints themselves, just so they match that of the geometry. So we need to show all. There we go. So first of all, let's do these. See if we can do these both at the same time. And yes, we can. That's good. Because the axis, the x-axis and the z-axis are all in the right direction, so theoretically they should rotate correctly together because of the direction that everything is facing, and x being down the middle of the bone, so that's all good. So I think I'm quite happy with that. That's quite nice. Let's just give a little bit of a tweak, just about there. That's absolutely spot on. So now we can do the mirror. So skeleton, mirror joint, that's done, and we'll hit G, and that should be done as well. G repeats the command. Okay, so there we go. So that's that hand side done. So now what we'll do is we'll begin to connect things up, and then what we'll do, we'll jump in and we'll do our thumb last. Okay, so by grabbing the left palm 1 and our wrist, just hit P. There we go, that should all be good. Okay, and now what we need to do is we need to do another little joint just popped in the middle there, and we'll do that now. So again, top view, grab the joint tool and just drop that in to about there, hit enter, rename that, we'll call that left palm underscore palm. Okay, so that's done, and then what you can do, again, skeleton, mirror that joint across, so now that's right palm, and actually undo that again, we need to move that back up. Okay, So just grab that guy, move him all the way back up into position. Otherwise our joint chain is going to be going up and down to the floor. So that'll be fine just there. There we go, that's good to go. And what I will do is I'm just going to rotate this joint axis actually. I'm just going to rotate this round. That's by hitting F9 and then the question mark up here, and then I'm just going to rotate the axis ever so slightly so the X now faces towards the forefinger here. And this is something that we're going to be just checking and readjusting joints as we go as well in this part of the tutorial. So with that done, I can turn that off and just hit F8 and hopefully everything should go back to normal. So that's all good. So we're going to call that again LT_palm. Okay, that's all in position. And all we're going to do now, again, as we did just a second ago, is just mirror the joint across and everything should be fine for us to go in that one. Okay, so with that selected and that selected, hit P. That will parent that up, which is good. And then again to the wrist, hit P. That should parent that up. And that's all done. And then just repeat the process across on the other side. Okay, so we'll do that now while we're here. So P, and again with this. Whoops, and there we go, and that's done. Okay, so with that done, what we need to do now is draw our thumb. So I'm going to jump into the actual side view this time. Okay, like so. As you can see, there's our thumb just pointing down just here. And what we'll do is we'll start a joint just sort of around here, I think, this sort of area, and then also there where the knuckle of the thumb is, and obviously the thumb tip. And just hit enter to bring that in. And if we go to a front view, we'll just need to slide this guy across. Okay, so we'll slide him across, and what we need to do first is rotate this guy. So I'm just going to rotate him into position there. So it's not going to be quite right this very second, because what we need to do is rotate the axis so that that is all sort of facing in the right direction. Okay, so we'll need to do all this very shortly to make sure everything is in a good position for the thumb rig itself. So I'm just going to, this might take a little bit of tweaking to do, but hopefully it should be fairly straightforward. So yeah, that's not too bad. I may just bring that up, angle that down, like so. So if we hit F9 and have a look at our axis here, what we'll need to do is re-rotate the axis here for the base of the thumb, so it actually bends inwards, because at the moment the way that's going to work is it's going to be at a strange angle. So that will need to be absolutely sort of almost level, if you like, with that. So Z will be the rotational axis here, but it will need to be straight. So let's just do that. I'll just show you what I mean. So like so. So you will need to just check it in all your views. Let's go up to our top view here. So X, or Z rather, will need to be quite straight, and then just keep that like that. So that's going to be the rotational axis for that part of the thumb itself. So now if I hit F8 and go back, you can see now that the rotate tool, that will all bend accordingly like that. So that's now actually kind of correct. Okay, so it's just one of those things to be aware of. And also what you'll need to do is the same sort of thing with the joint here. You may need to just sort of tweak that joint axis or the orientation of the joint just so it matches exactly with the way the angle of the thumb is itself. So for me that would be about there. and then hopefully if we go back to F8, you know, that's going to bend fairly well. Okay, so that's just one thing to be aware of. We'll go through, we'll rig up the rest of this, and then we'll run through what we need to look at. Okay, so that's just a sort of a quick look at the rotational axis on the thumb. And what I'll do, just want to bring that in just a little bit more there, so that's more centered with the thumb itself. Okay, so that's all good. Okay, so what we need to do now is I'm just going to add in an extra joint, just one there, because the thumb is a bit strange. So we'll have a joint there, and we should be pretty good to go. So I think just one just in there. So if we just jump in our top view, and we'll place it about there. Okay, so about there. So we'll call that thumb palm. Hit enter, and again we'll hit thumb palm, or LT underscore thumb palm. Okay, and what we'll do, jump into our front view, and we'll just move this guy up into position. Okay, like so. Okay, about there. That should be good. Okay, and then what we'll do, skeleton, we'll mirror that joint across, and then we can join this guy up. So hit parent, and parent again, and we should be good to go. So we're all good there. So essentially, I think what I'll need to do is retweak that, because looking at that, I think, and looking at my own thumb, this is the axis that will matter when it comes to bending the thumb, and that's actually pretty good. It's pretty spot on. So that's just going to rotate around the X there, which is kind of nice. So in fact, we haven't got to worry about that one at all. So the thumb will actually come in and do that as it comes across. So it's just the other one that we did adjust prior to that will need to be adjusted again. So if we just jump in on that and hit F8, and if I just have a quick look, so it's more of an angle actually, and let's rotate that round to there. Let's rotate that so it rotates around the X. We'll keep that rotating on the X, and we'll just angle that in very slightly. Let's just have a look at that. So these are things you'll need to have a look at when you tweak stuff, especially when you come to do the set-driven keys, which we'll do in the next chapter. And we'll have a look at how the thumb can rotate. So I think if we do that there, like so, and then that should, and let's tweak that inwards a little bit as well. So it would be round at 90 degrees, so to speak, from the palm here, but a bit more an angle as it comes round and off the base of the thumb there. So let's have a look at that. So there we go. So again, it's something we can tweak when we come to do the set driven keys. That's actually not too bad. If you look at your own thumb, it will come in and cut across the palm that way, so that's good. And then this one should be, if you just use your thumb palm, then that's actually pretty good as well. So I'm going to leave that there for now. So that's great. So that's all good. So the other axis that we do want to check are these for our fingers, and hopefully we should have all the rotations going down the X, facing down the bone. So I'm just going to hit F8 and have a look. So X is there all the way down the bone, and so each of these fingers is going to rotate around its Z axis. Okay, so that's going to curl around there. So those sort of things are what you need to be aware of, which way the fingers are going to rotate. You can rotate it if you want to rotate them around the X, that's fine, but because we've drawn the joints as a default where everything faces, the joint faces down the bone in the X axis, so everything will, the joints will rotate around the Z. So hopefully that's all going to work for you. And also the other one to look at as well is the palm there for the pinky. I mean, you can get a little bit of curl going in on there, and I think we can rotate that ever so slightly around the X, so that's not actually too bad. We can actually leave that and get a little bit of rotation going on in the rest of the hand as well. So that's all good. So that's going to be our setup for our hand. All that leaves now is to get in there and finish the other side off, which we'll do in between the chapter. And then what we can do in the next chapter is we'll set up our set-driven keys to enable us to control the bend in our fingers and our thumb. So I hope that's all been fairly clear to you, and I hope it makes sense. And I shall see you in the next chapter. Cheers for now. Okay, so welcome to part 4. We're going to start adding some hand controls and stuff now. So what we're going to do first is add a couple of attributes to the left wrist control, and what we'll be doing is putting some values in for some of the controls, i.e. things like the fingers curling here. So when the fingers curl sort of inwards, they have a maximum sort of rotational value, and then also we'll be putting some with sort of some more degrees of freedom on, because they're sort of more sort of a broader looking thing. You know, you can use your eyes to judge their sort of rotational distances and stuff like that. But you'll see what I mean when we come to do it. So let's get cracking. So first of all, what I'm going to do is select our left wrist control, go to Modify, Add Attribute, and the first things we're going to do is do the LT 4 for forefinger curl. Okay, we'll do a minimum value of 0 because we're not bending our fingers back, maximum value of 10 for the actual curl, and a default of 0 when it's at rest. So that's for the forefinger, and as you can see, the attribute appears in our channel box just down here. So the next one's going to be the left index curl. Okay, and again we can do 0, 10 and 0 for that. Okay, the next one is going to be thumb curl. So LT underscore thumb curl. Now with the thumb curl, what we're going to do is we're going to have two sets of attributes, or values rather. First of all, in the minimum, we're going to put -10, so the thumb can come up a little bit, and then in the maximum we'll do 10 for the standard thumb curl, and the default we'll do to 0, and we'll just add those. Okay, so those are done. Okay, so then what we want to do then, so that's the left thumb curl, left index curl, left thumb curl, fore curl. Okay, so we need now is the left thumb palm, and again capital letter on there, and what we'll do, we'll put in the same values as we've done with the thumb, so a minus value because it enables us to lift the thumb palm up a little bit, and 10, and again 0, and we'll add those. So those set driven keys there are going to be driven properly with values. Now these ones, the values that we're going to put in now, these are going to be sort of bit more freedom for you to sort of move the character's hand and forearm about a little bit. So the first one we're going to do is going to call left underscore wrist twist, like so, and we're going to leave that as is, and just going to add that, and then we're going to do left LT underscore wrist bend, like so, and I'm just going to add that. Okay, and then the last one is going to be left underscore forearm twist. Whoops. And there we go. So that's all done. So we'll add that, and we'll close that off. So first of all, what we'll do some pretty simple connections here to get us going, just for a quick warm-up. And what we'll do as well is we'll go to Window, General Editors, Connection Editor. Okay, and this is a really useful sort of sort of panel to use for when you're trying to connect stuff up. So let's reload the left wrist control, and if we slide down, what we can see are all our attributes that we've just created. So first one we're going to do is the left wrist twist. Okay, and then what we need to do is, obviously, in order to connect that up to the left wrist twist, we need to select our left wrist and reload that. And what you need to look for in this part of the connection editor is your rotate attributes, which is just here, rotate XYZ. Okay, so the left wrist twist, or actually that should be left wrist side side really for that attribute. So what we'll do is we'll go in, go modify, edit attributes. Oops, let's select that, modify, edit attributes. So the left wrist twist we'll call left wrist side. Okay, so we should have left wrist side now appear in the edited attribute. Okay, so again, back to the connection editor, grab your left wrist control, reload that, and then again reload your wrist. So let's just scroll down, and left wrist side, there we go, that's the one we want to do. And again, we need to just go and find our rotations. There we go. So we'll grab our left wrist side, and if you're not sure about the rotation order, let's have a look. If we hit F9, we can see that for side to side we need to have it rotating around the Y. Okay, and for the bend, the left wrist bend attribute, again it's going to bend up and down around the Z axis, so we're going to hit that there. And the forearm twist just really leaves us one rotational axis, really, because that's the one that was drawn down, and that's going to be on the rotate X, and you can just close that off. So that's all good, and we'll just hit F8, go back to our standard component mode, if you like, or our object mode. And good way to test it, so we've just done the last three attributes here, so let's grab that again. So if we do left wrist side, so you can see there it's rotating around the Y axis. Left wrist bend up and down around the Z axis, and our forearm twist is going around our X axis. So that's all good to go. Okay, so now for something a little bit more tricky, which is the set driven key menu set, like we used before on our foot roll. A little bit more simple, I would say, in terms of its setup, so I haven't got to worry about all the IK handles and all that kind of thing in there. But really, again, it's just a case of rotating everything around its pivots and stuff in the right order. So animate, set driven key, and set, and grab the driver, which is going to be the left wrist control, and do load driver. And let's just scroll down just so we can see the attributes that we need. And for this exercise, what we'll do, we'll set up the left forefinger curl first. Okay, so that's done. And then what you need to do is grab the three joints for that finger, load driven, and then control select each of those. And the rotation axis should be for this, should be Z. Again, if you're not sure, hit F9, and also make sure that you've got the select component is selected up here. Alright, so that's all good to go. So I'm going to hit F8, and with that all done, we're going to key that. Okay, so as you can see, the joints are now keyed around their Z axis there. Okay, so that's all good. Okay, so with that done, what we need to do is basically pose these up around the Z axis. Okay, and what we'll do, we'll come up, and that's there. Okay, so that's all good to go. Alright, so I've got a little slight bit of intersecting there as the joint is touching the top of the geometry there on the palm, but that's absolutely fine. And with that done, I think I may have done that. I've forgotten to do something, so let's take that back. So my mistake there, I do apologise. So with that already keyed in the rotate Z or the Z, select the left wrist control and put in your attribute of 10 that we put in when we created the attributes for their fingers. So with that done, we can now go in and select the joints once again in our Z rotation axis, and I'm just going to position it using the middle mouse drag, so that's all good, and down the center of the joint, and again we can just bring that up and then go back and just tweak that ever so slightly back again. So a little bit of back and forth just to get your joints looking right. Okay, so no big deal, so just a bit of patience and you should all be good to go. So okay, with that done, you can now hit key, so that's done, and then select your controller, your left wrist control, and highlight the left forefinger curl and middle mouse drag, and you can see there that your fingers are curling nicely. So that's all good. So with that done, you can repeat that process again for the index finger, just following exactly that, but this time don't forget to highlight the attribute that you're using and then load up your index fingers into the driven window, highlight those, and then just go through, rotate, etc., key that, job done. So just follow that, but just using those attributes, and you should be good to go. So let's go on. What we'll do now, we'll do the thumb, because it can be a little bit tricky sometimes with the thumb. So what we'll do, we'll load that up. So we'll do the thumb curl attribute here, and I'm going to grab the joints there and do load driven. Actually, sorry, I've forgotten a joint there as well. So we've got thumb 1 and thumb 2. Okay, and we're going to get those to rotate around the Z axis. Okay, and we're going to key that as well. Okay, so that's all done. So now what we want to do is select our thumb curl, and if you remember, we put in 2 sets of attributes for this because the thumb curl can go up and down. So for the first one, we're going to do 10 like so, and this is going to enable us to bring the curl of the thumb inwards towards the palm. Okay, so I'm just going to bring that in like so, and let's just grab that. That axis is slightly off there for some reason. Oh no, it isn't, that's fine. It's just the way the tool is displaying. So let's grab that like so, and then go up to the next one and rotate that as well. And back down. Okay, like so. Let's just bring that back up a bit. It's not looking too bad. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, just checking the movement of my own thumb here. So that's good. So that's all good to go there. And then we'll just grab the other one here and we'll just curl that into the geometry just there. So that's all good. Okay. So again, key that. That's done. And then go back to your control, and hopefully that should all work nicely like so. Okay, again, with that still selected, now we want to put in the 10, which is our curl, but now what we want to do is put in -10, and then we're going to rotate those out. Okay, just ever so slightly, not too much, and let's just do that. Okay, and then what you want to do is key that again, and then hopefully grab the left wrist control, and there we go. Okay, so your thumb can wiggle up and down, in and out. Alright, like so. And then just simply put that back to 0, and it's done. Okay, and the last one that we're going to do for this exercise is going to be the thumb palm. So we're just going to grab that one only, load driven, and what we want to do is just check the rotational axis of this one. So we're going to hit F9, and this one is going to rotate around the X this time. Okay. So this one's going to, basically what it's going to do is come over ever so slightly. We're not going to do a great deal, but that's what we're going to do. So rotate X, key that, and then back to F8. So thumb palm to 10, which is the one that we put in, and then basically just want to grab that, hit E, and hopefully just bring that up there like so, key that, go back to the driver, put in -10, okay, bring that back, whoops, wrong one, grab that, bring that back there as well, okay, and then hopefully we should be able to key that as well. Alright, so that's done. So that's the thumb. So thumb palm as well, there we go. So we keep that movement separate from the actual thumb curling itself. Alright, so you've got a little bit more to play with there. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm not going to, as I said, have a go with the index finger there yourselves, and let's just put that back there to 0. So we've shown two ways in this particular episode of setting up joints or joint connections for the controls via the connection editor, and also using the set driven key menu. So we're going to call it a day on this chapter, and I shall see you in the next chapter where we'll start adding some more controls to enable us to move the body around a little bit, and we'll start having a look at controlling the backbone. Okay, so until then, happy rigging. Hey everybody, welcome back. Welcome to part 5. In the last chapter, we were doing the hands. We were setting set-driven keys and doing some connections in the connection editor. I've gone in and finished everything off and sort of tidied it up a little bit more. We'll make these files available to you via the site when you come to download stuff, so you should be okay. It'll all be there for you. If we just have a quick look, we've got the 4-finger curl backwards and forwards, and same with the index. The thumb curl, I went in and tweaked just a little bit more, so I wasn't overly happy with the way that was sitting when we were doing the actual part for that, but now it's all sitting rather nicely. That's done. We've also got the thumb palm looking good as well. I haven't done anything different, I've just gone in and just sort of tweaked it, just made it look a little bit better. And obviously the connection editor stuff that we did, left wrist bend, left forearm twist, etc. And I added an extra one. I put in some fingers spreading, like so. So you can open and close the fingers as well. And that's all done. And then I did exactly the same for the other side, for the right hand side. Just as a side note, really, don't feel that just because you've got these set-driven keys on your digits or your fingers that you have to use them all the time. I mean, you can still go in and animate them with standard animation or forward kinematics. You can still do it that way. There's nothing to stop you from doing it. It's just that we've added these controls so you don't have to really worry about it as much. But feel free to go in and make all sorts of gestures and stuff with the hands. It's really not a problem. Let's just hide the camera planes because they're getting on my nerves already. Okay, so what we're going to do in this exercise, we're going to be creating some hip controls, and we're going to be adding 3 controls, one for the hip twist, one for the hips bend, and one for the hips side to side, sort of a wiggle if you like. Before we do, there's just one thing to make a note of. Because we're writing an expression for these particular controls, they're going to be sort of connected to the control and to the axis as well of the joints, and it's worth making a note of your axis on your joints, which way your joints do actually rotate. So for instance, what we're going to be doing is creating a hip twist or a back twist, and the controller is actually going to be rotating around the y-axis, but the joint itself will rotate around the x. So you need to just sort of be aware of that, and why and what's doing what. And also, you know, as another example, we will be creating a back bend. So the actual rotation of the control will be around the x-axis, whereas the joints are going to be rotating around the z-axis, and so on. So it's just something to be aware of while you're doing that stuff. If you want to change the orientations of your joints, then that's fine. So everything matches up with y to y, x to x, and z to z. You know, you can do it that way as well. It's not a problem. But for this exercise, just have a watch and see how you get on and see what you think. So let's get back to it and let's get creating some controls. So what we want to do is we're going to go up to the NURBS primitives, and I'm going to create a NURB circle. Okay, and we're just going to scale that up like so. I think that's big enough. And W, and we're going to V snap that to the root joint just in there. Okay, and we're going to create another one just by hitting Control D. Okay, and what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to rotate this one, and with J pressed down, just going to snap that to its orientation there at 90 degrees, as you can see. And we're going to do another one, Control D, and again going to rotate that round, but this time another 90 degrees around the Y to place that for the back bending side to side. Okay, so that's all done. So then with those selected, what I suggest is you freeze those out completely and delete any history. Okay. Now what we could do, these controllers are looking pretty good, but they're looking a little bit sort of boring, and also we need to sort of identify with what they're actually going to be doing. So what I'm going to do is give them each a separate color that's going to match the orientation or the axis here, if you like, the world space rotational axis stuff. So with this one here we'll call the back twist. Let's rename them now as we go. So we'll call this back twist. Okay, and what we'll do, we'll colour that green because it's going to rotate around the y-axis, so we'll colour that green the same as that. So Control A, and come down again to Drawing Overrides under your Object Display, Enable Overrides, and we'll go in and we'll make this green. Okay, like so. There we go. It's just a slightly different green to the green you get if you select your object. But I'm sure if you want, there's a darker green as well you could use. You could use that one. Actually, we'll use that one. That's probably a little bit better. Okay, so then for the back side to side, so we'll call this back side. Okay, because this one's going to be rotating around the z-axis. So back side. Okay, and what we'll do, we'll label that blue. So again, we'll go back to Enable Overrides, and we'll find a decent blue for that. That's pretty good. We'll use that one. And this one here, this one is going to be our back bend, because this one's going to be rotating around the X axis. So back bend, and that's all done. So then all we need to do, enable our overrides, and we'll make this a red colour. Let's pick a red. It's more like an orange. Let's do that red. That's kind of vibrant enough. That's good. Okay, so we're ready to go. And what we need to do is now keep an eye on the names of things, and we can get this expressions and stuff put together, and our controls should hopefully work. So first of all, we're going to be sort of using the expression to control up to B4, which is back 4. Okay, so the root to B4 are the ones we're going to be using, and those are what our expressions are going to be linked to. So first of all, let's get on with our back twist. So what we need to do is go to Window, Animation Editors, and open up your expression editor. Okay, as you can see, we've already got a couple of expressions in here already. Those are from when we did the alpha gain and alpha offset for our displacement maps. For some reason I've got 2 in there, I don't know why, but that's all good to go anyway. So I'm going to go out to Select Filter and go Object Attribute Name, I'm going to select back twist and I'm going to put a name in for it. So we're going to call it back twist, and then in capitals EXP for expression. Okay, and then we're going to come down here. Now this is where we need to put the joint names in and their rotational axis, and then we're going to connect those up with the actual rotational axis of the back twist control. So first of all, we're going to type in root and then rotate X, which is what it's rotating around because the joints are facing upwards. If you recall, when we did the actual placement of the joints up the back, the X is facing down the bone. Okay, so let's continue with that. So equals, and then we want a 0 plus, and then we want back twist, which is our control. Yeah, and then what we need to do then is dot ry semicolon. Okay, so then what you want to do now is copy that. So Control C, drop down a line, Control V, and do this 4 times because we're going to add these to the other 4 joints above the root joint. So this one we're going to call B1, which is the name of the first joint, B_1, and then B_2, and again B_3, and then B_4. Okay, so then that should be back twist all the way down there, and then simply create. And if this expression works, things should go pink. And there we go. So that's done. So that's really, really good. And what we can do is we can test that. So if we just select the control, if we hit E, and there we go. So everything's rotating all the way up to the top of that backbone 4. Okay? So let's just undo that, 0 that out. And what we can do, if we go to expression name and select that, okay, let's copy this. Okay, and then we can use this to begin our backside rotation for the expression. So Control C, then let's just go back up to the expressions there. We're going to select that. So you can see backside has come in there now. So we're just going to make backside EXP. That's done. I'm going to grab down into the expression box here. I'm going to paste. And now what we want to do is, because we're going to be controlling the backside, the actual axis for the joints is going to be in Y for this particular motion, if you like, or rotation of the joints. But the actual controller is going to be rotating around Z. So we've just got to change a couple of letters and stuff in here. So what we're going to do, rotate Y, or we can actually change this down to RY. Okay, so let's just grab those. Control C, and we'll change that Control V all the way down. Okay, like so. That's all good. So again, we want to change this one. This is going to be back side. So we want to change this to side. Change the name to the name of the controller, as we've got up here. Okay, so we'll just copy that. So Control C, Control V. So it's fairly quick. It's nothing too drastic. And Control V. And Control V. And then last but not least, what we want to do is put in RZ, which is going to be the rotate Z. So again, we'll just cut all this short. Control C, Control V, Control V. So this is the rotation expression for the actual control itself, which is just here. And again, with a bit of luck, if I've done this correct, this should highlight pink with the connection. And there we go, that's done, that's great. Okay, so let's grab that, and as you can see, it's a bit wobbly, but we can connect, sort of correct all this, it's not a problem. So let's go to the expression name. Okay, backside, what I'm going to do is just grab that lot, Control C once again. Okay, so we've got one more to do, which is our back bend, and let's just go object. Okay, back bend, and then we'll back bend EXP. That's done. And then again, I'm just going to throw those all in down there, paste those back in. So this time we want rotate Z for the root. In fact, let's just change that all to RZ. And again, we'll just copy and paste all the way down. Control C, Control V, Control V, Control V, and Control V. So let me just move this up a little bit, that's better. Okay, so we want back bend now. So this is going to be back bend. Okay, and what we'll do, we'll just highlight that, Control C, and paste these back in all the way down. And there we go. And again, this is going to be rotating around the X. So this is the control. So this is going to be RX all the way down. So we'll just change this. So copy that and then just paste it over the top. Okay. Whoops. And Control V we want on there, not V itself. Control V. And there we go. And again, with a bit of luck, if I've done this correctly, create that, and that's done. So we can go in, and now we can rotate that. So again, it's looking a little bit violent, as you can see. It's a bit real kind of flexible. But what we can actually do is go in and slow these expressions down, so then it sort of tapers off, and the movement is more than it is at the bottom of, say, at the root joint here. So, whoops, I can't do that there. So let's select that. So as you can see, the hips are moving backwards and forwards. They're quite harsh, and it's not really ideal when you want to have your character's body bending over. So what we're going to do is we're going to slow the expression down. So with back bend still selected up here, if you just go to expression name, and if we just select it, back bend, and what we can do, we can put a division expression in. So basically what we can do is if we go to the root here, we can slow it down, and if we put in, actually it's a multiplier, I beg your pardon, so if we put a multiplier in, we can then just slow down the complete expression or the rotation of that of the root joint. So what we can do is, if you just start off with sort of like an average number, like let's just say 6, okay, and then what we can do, we can taper it out to the next one, which is joint B1, which is back one. Okay, and we can put in, let's do 4, okay, and then just hit edit. Okay, so what these are going to do, these are going to slow these down. So as we have a look now, it's not as bad. Okay, but again, what I'll do is I'll just jump in. I'm going to put a value of 10 in there, just so it really slows that down, and we'll put a value of 6 in there, so it really slows it down on B1 as well. So then after that, you know, it can bend a little bit more, and it's not so bad. So if we hit edit, and now again, you know, that's really pretty good. That's what we want. We want it to be like that. Okay. I don't want it to wiggle around too much. In fact, we could probably bring that right back down to about 3 on there, and hit edit, and then again, there we go. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll use 10 and 3 for the remaining controls as well. So let's do that. So I'll just go to side, open this out, and we'll put the multiplier in, and we'll do 10 there. And again, for the B1 joint as well, and we'll put 3 in for that. Probably seems quite harsh. You may want to experiment with your own stuff and see how it goes. Okay, so we'll just grab the side control, and there we go. It's not so bad. If you actually try and do this, your hips still move, but I think we've got a better control over that now. And you can do this for all of the joints all the way up if you want to slow them right down completely, so it's not as bad. And then obviously you can put joint limitations and stuff on as well as to how much they do actually rotate. But we won't be covering that in this. We'll just be doing these little bits to help set up the controls and everything else. So that's all good. So the last one we want to do is our back twist. So again, I'm just going to put a multiplier in of 10, and again a multiplier in of 3, and I'm going to edit that, and hopefully that's done as well. Okay, so there we go. It's not as bad now. Alright, so that's all good. So hopefully you've got that far. What I will do is I will write the expressions out for you and we'll supply you those on a text document so you can have a look at them and see how you get on. Just in case you can't see them properly here either in the video. Okay, so I'm going to close that off, and we're going to just get our selection tools, and we're going to grab each one of the controls, okay, like so. And what we're going to do, we're going to group those together. So Control G, and just name those. So we'll call them back CTRL, back controls, G underscore GRP. Okay, so that's done. And then, because we want the controls to move around with the character, just select the skeleton at the root joint and hit P, and we should be good to go. And you know, you can start. The controls will move around with the character, and there you go, no problems. Okay, so hopefully that's good for you. Okay, so one last thing before we move on to the next chapter, where we'll be looking at doing a neck control. We could actually use something very similar to this on the neck itself, but we'll have a look at another way of controlling the sort of rotations and stuff around the neck. So you've got a choice of you know, how you want to do stuff. Okay, so before we do that, before we move on to the next chapter, there's one more thing that we do actually need to do, and that's put in some pole vector controls, like we did for the elbows, for the legs, because we haven't got any for the knees, and we've used the IK rotate plane solver for the elbows, which is the same thing that we used on the legs as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring in our controller, and we'll use the same elbow pole vector control that we used for the arms previously, but what we'll do, we'll just rename it. So we'll just call it left knee PVC, LT underscore knee PVC, and what we'll do, we'll just move that out to the front here, and we'll just, actually what we'll do, we'll snap that to the knee, there we go, and we'll just bring that out, and bring that round, and let's rotate that with J. There we go, that's all done. So that should be at 180. Freeze that out, okay, and Control D to dupe that, and I'm going to bring up the move tool, there it is, okay, and we'll just move that in front of the other knee as well, and we'll just rename this right knee PVC. That's done, and just make sure both the transformations are frozen out with that, and then what we want to do is group it to itself. So we'll call that left knee, we'll just call it group, okay, and just center the pivot for that for now, okay, on that group itself. And then again, the same with this one, we'll group it, Control G, and we'll call that RT knee group. And the reason we've done the group node again is so we can parent that to the body, and the rest, and everything should move around and stuff. And the other thing we want to do, of course, is change the override color to red to match this side of our character. So there we go. So what we'll do is we'll just grab that, and let's do the pole vector first, and then we'll parent everything to the actual skeleton. Okay, so grab that, so shift select the IK handle, I think I've done this the right way around this time, do pole vector, there we go, that's done. Okay, so there's our pole vector control for the leg, and again do the same thing for the other leg, and we'll do pole vector, and there it is. So hopefully with those zeroed out, we need to zero that out actually. That's okay, that's zeroed out. So if we have a look, we should be able to see our knees move as well. So I'm going to hit up, I'm going to center the pivot for that, and I'm just going to grab the root joint there, and I'm just going to parent that under that, and we'll do the same thing for the left knee group. I'm going to grab the root joint and parent that under there. So everything will now stay together. So that's all done. Okay, so hopefully you should get along quite well with the expressions and stuff there for your character. There are other ways to create controls for a back. You can put an IK spline handle in there, stuff like that. I may do a small tutorial at the end of this one to show you how to set that up as well. But this is my preferred method with the control curves around the hips. I really do prefer it that way. It just seems a lot cleaner than having a lot of little clusters and little groups of stuff hanging out the back. And it's also very simple. And for me, that's the way the best rigs always are. The more simple they are, the better they are. So anyway, I hope that's been of use to you, and I shall see you in the next section. Cheers for now. Okay, welcome to part 6. Carrying on from last time, where we made our back control curves and stuff. What we're going to be doing now is creating something very, very similar for the neck. So we've got these sort of 4 joints here for the neck, and we're going to create one single control curve now that will enable us to control the bending and the twisting and the side-to-side motion of the neck. The technique we're using here now can also be applied to this. So you've got a choice of 2 ways of setting these rotations up. So first of all, what we're going to do, we're going to start to create our control, but this time we're going to do it from a polysphere. So I'm just going to bring that in, I'm going to scale that up, and W, and let's just bring this all the way up here. There we go. And for some reason it's green, it's got no UVs on it, so I'm not going to worry about that for a minute. So because we're going to get rid of the shading anyway on that. So let's go over to our hypershade and we'll graph this guy up, and what we'll do is we're just going to break the link between that and the shading group, and hopefully there we go. So that's what we're left with. So we're going to do some history from there, okay, and freeze the transforms, and just make sure we've got center pivot and it's all snapped to the N1 base of the first joint for our neck, which is there, which is joint N1, as you can see there, neck 1. Okay, so that's good. So what we need to do now is just give this a name. So we're going to call it neck CTRL for control, enter, that's done. And then we'll just give it a quick colour. So we're going to jump over to our attribute editor, enable overrides once again, and we'll just find it a red colour, and that will do for that. That's fine, as long as it's different from the rest of the other controls, we're good to go. Okay, so what we want to do now is create our expressions to get some rotations in there. So we need to open up our animation editors and open expression editor as we did last time. And what we're going to do is select this so it comes in. Okay, so you should be on object by object attribute name. And we're going to create a new expression name as well. So we're going to call it neck CTRL underscore exp for expression. So we're good to go. So what we need to do now is put the joint names in and the name of the control. Excuse me. And like last time, make a note of how your joint rotational axis are actually sitting in Maya. So even if we rotate this around the Y on here, if we rotate this around the Y axis, the joint will be rotating around the X. So we have to keep all of these in conjunction with each other, unless, like I said last time, you want to make sure that Y is rotating with the Y, X with the X, and Z with the Z. But for now, we're going to leave it as we've drawn the joints, and let's move on. Okay, so let's jump back, grab our neck control, and just pop that back to neck CTRL underscore EXP. Just make sure we've got a capital in there, good. So what we need to do now is put in the joint names with the rotational axis that we need to make it fit and connect with the control that we're about to put in. And we want to put equals, and then we need a 0 and a plus, and then we want to put in neck control CTRL, and that's going to be around our RY. Okay, so that's the axis it's going to rotate around. And again, just put the semicolon and we're ready to go. So we're going to do this another 3 times. So I'm going to Control C, Control V, whoops, and we'll just drop it down a line, Control V and Control V. Okay, so we want to do this to N2. Okay, like so. Whoops, that should be 3 and 4. Okay, so that's all good to go. So now what we want to do now is copy this. So we're now going to do all of the control expressions in one. So we're now going to do it for the joints rotating around the y-axis. So this is going to be like the side to side. So when we rotate this in the z-axis, the joints will rotate side to side. So copy that. Okay, and I'm just going to bring it down underneath, Control V, and we're going to call this RY. So we're just going to change these, and just going to copy these over. And just paste over those. Oops. Okay, and then let's just come down a little bit more, and we want to change the rotation for the neck control to RZ. Okay. Okay, that's all good. And the last one we want to do, let's copy that again. And let's just come down, Control V. And this one, this time, when we rotate the joints around the Z, so again, Z all the way down, and so the control will be then turning through the rotate of X. Okay, so if I've done this right, we should be good to go, and we can hit create, and it should have linked up, and there we go. So now what we need to do is just check our rotations. So there you can see it's working, but the problem we've got now is that if I rotate the sphere forward, the neck joint goes backwards, and it will be the same, I should think, for the neck side, and also when I rotate, that's not so bad around the center. But what we'll need to do is correct the joint rotation. Okay, so what we need to do for that is, if we go back and select our joints up to here, okay, and then if you just hit F9, yeah, make sure your question mark for your miscellaneous components is selected as well, and you should get your axis, local rotational axis icons appear. And then what we want to do is grab the Y. Basically what's happening is it's all just flipped around because of the way we've drawn it. If I just select this one down here, you'll see the Y is sticking out the front on all of this. Okay, so what this means is we need to select these up here. Okay, so let's just go back to F8 and we'll start that again. Okay, so just these 4 joints, that one there as well. Now if we just hit F9, there we go, that's displaying. So again, just select, when they go yellow, you know you've got them selected, and there you go. And what we need to do is put in a simple rotational mel script, and we'll just pop that in down here on the mel command line, and that's going to be rotate, okay, -R, -OS, and then 180, 0, and 0, okay, then semicolon, and the 180 is going to be the actual axis around the X. We're going to be rotating the axis 180 degrees around X, and Y and Z will be left at 0. So once that's done, hit enter, and your axis should flip towards the front, making them the same as the back. Okay, so let's just go back to our control curve, or our control box, whatever you want to call it, and if we hit E this time and rotate this, there we go. So because those axes were flipped, everything was flipped the other way or working the other way, but now everything's working really good. Again, you could probably look at this and think, oh, that neck's bending a bit too much at the base and so on. So what we can do, we can go back in and we can just add in a couple of small values to slow that down once again. So let's go to animation editors, expression editor, okay, there we go, and expression name, and we want neck control. So on the end of this top one, we want to put in a value of, let's say 6, just to slow this down on the joint N1 there, and on the next one down we'll put that down, we'll put the division in of, let's put in 4, I think, just for that one, okay, and we'll just do the same for each of those, so 6 and 4, and again let's do 6 and 4. Okay, so then that should be really good for us to redo. Okay, so if I just pop that to 0, okay, there we go. Right, so if we select this again, this time it should be a little bit slower towards the base of the neck. Okay, there we go. You can adjust it accordingly to however you want to do, but usually that should usually do the trick. And the good thing with this control is that you can grab it all in one go. So there we go. Okay, so all it leaves us need to do now is parent that particular control to the actual skeleton. So I'm just going to close off the expression editor, okay, and I'm going to grab the control itself. I'm going to hit Control G to group it, and we're going to call that neck CTRL underscore GRP. Okay, and with that selected, what I'm going to do is select the shoulders there and hit P, and that's all good to go. So hopefully now when we grab our skeleton, everything moves with it. So again, that's all nice and tidy. So that's a very short chapter just to finish off that rotations and sort of controls and everything for the neck. The next section, what we're going to be looking at is the eyeballs, and also what we're going to be looking at as well, because we've got a whole mesh here, we're going to look at blend shapes and how you can achieve creating blend shapes without using the whole of the mesh. And what we'll be doing is cutting the head off and duplicating that across and restitching the head back to the actual mesh in a certain order, and in that way it will just enable you to use the singular cut off heads to be fed in to do your facial expressions with. So eye controls and a bit of blend shaping, and that should finish off the rig controls as a whole. We'll put a little controller in as well for the blend shapes to be used, and then once that's done we'll move on to skinning the character up. So I shall see you in part 7. Okay, so welcome to part 7. Hopefully you've made it this far, and after doing our controls for the hips and also for the neck. So if you did, well done. This section is going to be fairly straightforward. It's not going to be anything overly drastic or mind-blowing. What we're going to do is we're going to first of all add a hip control for the translations of our hip, so we can move backwards and forwards, side to side, and so on. So that's going to be relatively straightforward. The next one will be we're going to add some small controls in for our eyes as well, so we can get a couple of constraints on there. We'll probably use a orient constraint and probably a aim constraint, something along those lines. And what we'll do after that is probably something a little bit more sort of complicated, I suppose, in terms of character setup, and that's blend shapes. We're going to just do a couple just to show you how to get started. I think what I need to do really is sort of go over how to create blend shapes for a character that has an all-in-one body, mesh like this. It's not separate because it's being hidden by clothing or something like that. I mean, this guy, you can see the neck, you can see everything. So I think we'll go through a little procedure to help you around that, and hopefully it will shed some light on blend shapes and stuff. We could, if you wanted, you could go in and rig the facial features up with joints and clusters and all sorts of bits and pieces, but for me at the end of the day a blend shape's a lot easier, and it's probably a lot faster as well, because you can just go in and just grab the slider and move it around instead of going in and trying to pick little joints and stuff and shifting those and stuff like that. Though some people do design them in a way where they have a little interface on the actual Maya GUI here, and sometimes that's really cool, but I think again it's kind of clutter, and when you're animating and everything else, or posing and stuff, you just want to be as free as possible without too much baggage sort of hanging around in the screen. You want to be able to see what you're doing. So okay, so with less rabble, let's crack on. What I've done is I've put the body and the eyes on two different layers. So first of all, we're just going to hide the eyes, and we're going to nip up to my folder and import, and if we just go to our assets, and we should have a character select just here, which I've made, and what we'll do, we'll supply that for you as well, and this should come straight in at our root point of our skeleton, and that's pretty much centered there. So I haven't got to really move it around, snap it or anything, but depending on the size of your character, you may want to snap it, freeze the transformations out, delete history, all that kind of stuff as usual, keeping your scene clean. And of course what we'll need to do is just call this we'll call this hip CTRL. Okay, so hip control. Alright, so that's all good. And the other thing, what we need to do is parent that now to the root joint. So if we go to our animation menu set, go to constrain and hit parent, and hopefully that should be done. So if we can select that now, there we go, everything's centered out, all good, and then just hit W, and we can translate that, and then just put everything back to 0, and you're good to go. So that's pretty straightforward. That's probably going to be the easiest part of this particular bit of the tutorial. Okay, so right, moving on, and without further rabble, let's go in and do the controls for the eyes. So we're going to go up, create nerves primitives, we're going to go nerve circle, just going to pull it out to the front there, and we're just going to bring that right up. Okay, like so. And then what we need to do is rotate this guy, and I'm going to hit J, keep that the nerve circle constrained to 45 degrees to 90 degrees, etc., and that will snap, and we should be dead level 90 degrees. There we go. So then once that's done, just delete some history there, and before we freeze any transformations and stuff, I'm just going to scale it up a little bit, like so, and then in the front view, just by pressing spacebar, which is pretty straightforward, and hit V, and then snap it to the center of the eyeball. It's not behaving, there we go, that's better. So I'm probably going to have to move that back a little bit more. Okay, so I snapped it dead center there. So we're just going to move that back just a fair bit away from where the face topology or the mesh would be rather. And then what we'll do, we'll jump into the front view again, and we'll do Control D to duplicate that, and we'll just move that across, and with V press down again, we can just make sure that everything is dead center, and I believe it almost is. So let's just, and there we go, that's spot on now. Okay, so let's go back to our perspective. Okay, so we've got these two guys done, and what we're going to do, we're going to freeze the transformations and just center the pivots for both of those. Okay, just to make sure they're all centered up for when we come to do the orient and aim constraints. Okay, so we're just going to label this, so we're going to call this RT I underscore CTRL control. Okay, and for this one, LT underscore I underscore CTRL, and that's done as well. Okay, so we're all ready to go there. The other thing to do is just make sure that your group pivot is centered around the eye. Okay, and just up on there. There we go, that's all centered up. So that's good to go. So what we want to do now is we're going to start constraining these controls to the eyes, and the eyes to point at the control as well at the same time, just to keep it all nice and tidy. So I'm just going to open up my outliner, and there we go. So there's my eyes groups there. Okay, I've taken those out of the alien dude group there. So let's get cracking. So first of all, we're going to select the left eye control, and then I'm going to select the left eye group and just make sure we've got everything in there. That's the group, that's the whole group. Good. And then all we're going to do is go up to constrain, and we're going to hit aim. Okay, like so. Now this will work straight away with a bit of luck. There we go. So there he is, he's moving around. So I'm just going to zero him back out. But the other thing, what I'd like to do is just make sure that the control points at in the right sort of axis all the time as the eye. So if you do come to rotate the eye, you'll be able to see what angle the controller's at without having to sort of look around and try and find which way the actual eye is facing. You can just look at the control, and hopefully you'll be able to tell from that way. So this time with the left eye group selected, and then control select the controller, go constrain, and all we want to do now is hit orient. Okay, deselect that, and there we go. And then this time the control faces the eye. It doesn't matter about the control, the move tool. The control is just facing towards the eye every time. So if you're far away, you'll be able to see that the eyes are facing upwards. Okay, like so. And again, if you were to put them down or somewhere over here, you'll be able to say, okay, my right eye or my left eye is facing outwards that way. So, okay, so that's all good to go. I'm just going to zero those back out. Okay, so that one's done. And what we're going to do now, we're going to do the same with the other one. So, I'm going to select the right control, and then going to grab the right eye group, and again, I'm going to go constrain and aim. Okay, and grab the right eye group, and then the right eye control, constrain and orient. And just double check everything with this. And one moment, I just think that's better. Right, okay. Let's just double check. Whoops. Okay, that's good. So, right eye group. And looks like we've got a slight rotation on that. So I'm just going to undo that. I don't believe I've frozen that out at all anywhere. We have there. Okay, so let's just double check this. I think it may be because of the orient constraint. Okay, let's just have a look there. So hopefully, let's try again. So just going to freeze everything out just to make doubly sure. And freeze. So that's all good. Okay. Okay, so that and that. And then all we're going to do is add name constraint, like so. Okay. And then we'll grab the right eye group, constrain, and orient. If it's going to go on, come on, there we go. Okay, so with a bit of luck, that's all going to work again. So we're good to go. So you can just zero that lot back out, like so. That's all good. Okay, so I do apologise about that minor mistake there, having a look at the values. But it's nothing drastic, as you can see. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to label these up. So we've got the left and right side again. So we want red and yellow. So let's just jump over to our attribute editor. Okay, so let's just Control A. Okay, so we want to go down to Object Display. Okay, open up Drawing Overrides, enable Overrides, and then all we need to do is go and find our red colour, and there it is for that one. Okay, and then again enable Overrides, and where's that yellow? So we can find the yellow. There it is. So that's job done. So that's those done. What we want to do now is make a group for these controls. And what the best thing to do is actually create, in my opinion, is to make a locator and then just put it between these two guys. And then what you can do is grab those and just group them to the locator. Okay, and then afterwards, once everything's all rigged up, what we'll do is we'll group the eyes together as well. We'll group them probably all together, and then what we'll do is we'll parent them to the head bone. So when we come to move the neck and stuff like that, everything will move around accordingly. So that'll all be good to go. So once we're all rigged up, once the character's all skinned, then that's what we'll do. You know, make sure everything's all in place, and then we're good to go. Okay, so yeah, well, so what we need to do is create a locator. So just nip down to the locator, and there it is, just down there, hiding away. And we'll just bring that here, like so. And we'll just bring that up. Okay, and in the side view, I'm just going to make sure everything snaps together here. Okay, and we're going to just come down to about there. Okay, that's all good. There we go. And then all we need to do now is just freeze its transforms. Okay, like so. So that's all in place. And I think we can give this a colour as well. And let's go to draw and overrides, enable overrides. And what we'll do, because it's in the center, we'll give it the same sort of colour as this neck control here, which I think is that colour, which it is. Good. So then grab that eye control, that one, and that one, and actually we'll hit P, we'll parent that together. There we go. Okay, so those controls are parented to the locator, and we'll just call that eye control group, even though it's not a group node. Okay, so eye CTRL group. Okay, so you should be able to grab that and everything should follow nicely. Okay. Okay, so that's good to go. Okay, so that's all done. So I'm going to save that. Okay, so that's all saved out. And what we're going to do now is we're going to start doing a little bit of blend shape work. Okay, and we're going to select just the body, and I'm just going to hide all the unselected stuff. So we just concentrate on the body itself. So blend shapes, basically it's a way of one object controlling the shape of another object by deforming it. That's basically what a blend shape is. One thing to be aware on with blend shapes is that you can't really change the geometry as such once you decide to create them. There are ways of baking geometry to and from the blend shapes to the model and vice versa, but you have to do all that before you do get down and dirty with blend shapes and stuff, just so everything matches, because if you've got topology that doesn't match, they're just not going to work. And that's purely because what happens is, where are we? Right click. Each of these little verts has a number assigned to them, and if you reset, if you have a different vertex order on each of these, what will happen is this one could be called, let's see what this one's called actually. Let's go to, let's have that object, there it is. That one's called vert, if you can see there, that's vert 2118. And what can happen is if you change the topology on this character in any way, that could then become 3500. So there's things you have to be aware of. So you know, when you're doing blend shapes, you have to be aware that all the topology must be the same, otherwise it's just not going to work. However, in this little exercise, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be cutting this guy's head off, and we're going to be duplicating it across a couple of times to do some blend shapes. But at the same time, we're going to reattach the head. So the head, we're going to have some heads floating over here, but this one is going to be all in one. And the reason is because of the way the vertex order will work for the head as opposed to the body. So what we'll do, we'll go through that, and we'll show you. So first of all, let's just jump back to F8. Okay. So really, what you don't want is, if I duplicate this guy for a blend shape, you don't want to have to be creating a lot of these little guys all over the place, because at the end of the day your scene's going to get heavier and heavier and heavier, and you just do not want that when you're animating, or just generally you don't want a heavy scene. So what we're going to do, we're going to eliminate that process. Let's get rid of that. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut this guy's head off. Okay, and a good thing to do is choose a suitable area, or where you're going to extract the mesh from, because sometimes when you open the mouth, these areas get affected and stuff like that, and shouting, and you might want to put some blend shapes in the neck and stuff here. So for argument's sake, just for this exercise, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut the neck off to about here. Alright, so let's select that lot. Just make sure everything's all tidy. There we go, just got a few overlappers at the back there, so we'll get rid of those. Okay, so that's essentially what we're going to be cutting off. So I'm not going to use any of my shortcuts on my shelf, because even though I've got the icon there for extract, I'm just going to take you to the extract menu, which is up here under mesh, and just simply go extract. Okay, and that will happen. That's what you'll get. Alright, so now the head is now separate from the body. Okay, so what we can do is now grab the head, okay, and we'll duplicate that. So Control D, W, and I'm just going to center the pivot for that. Okay, so there he is. There's our duplicated head, and we'll do a couple. Alright, and again. Okay, so each of these we can create like a smile, left eyebrow up, right eyebrow down, and so on. So we can do all of this. Okay, but what we want to do now is we've got this head that's now unattached to the body. It's separated. It's been extracted off of it. And what we need to do is actually put it back onto the body now. And the great thing here is it's the way as I was mentioning earlier about the order of the vertexes. Now what we need to do is do this in a certain order, so only the body vertexes get reordered and not the head. Okay, otherwise the blend shapes won't work at all. So what you need to do is select the head first, and then shift select the body, and then if you just go to combine, if you go to mesh, just go combine. Okay, so that's now combined, but if I show you my border edges, we can still see that the points aren't merged up still. But the great thing is, once we merge them, the point order for the head will stay the same as it was before. The only difference is going to be the body, and we're not doing blend shapes for the body, so that's really, really good. So what you want to do is go up to your edit mesh, go to your merge, and put on the low tolerance or threshold. Okay, and just hit merge. Okay, and then that should all be done. You might want to go around, just double check that you haven't oververt, haven't got any merge verts and stuff that way. But yeah, so that's all done. So that's good to go. So I'm just going to delete the history on that, because otherwise that's going to bog it down as well. So now you're really ready to create some blend shapes. And so what we'll do a couple. Okay, so let's do this side, we'll do this one first. Okay, and I'm just going to hit the B key just to bring the soft mod tool. So we'll give him a smirk or whatever. So let's just undo that a little bit. And just bring out the fall off a bit more. Okay, and we'll just bring that up just slightly as well. And we'll just push this back. Okay, so we've got sort of like a left smirk. Alright, so what you can do is work on the left hand sides and stuff like that. Now I'm just going to give you a little hint here. I'm not going to do the right hand sides at all, because we at SimplyMaya, we do actually give you a free downloadable tutorial called Mirroring Blend Shapes. So get in there and grab hold of that and have a look at that, how to mirror blend shapes for the opposite side of the face. Absolutely well worth doing. It's one I did a while back, There's no magic in there. It's just simple stuff, really, using wrap deformers. So if you grab hold of that, then that will show you how to make the right hand side. So yeah, get in there and have a whirl. So okay, so what we'll do now is we'll grab the verts up here for our eye. I'm not taking massive amounts of care at this stage because I'm just showing you. Okay, so we'll just grab that eye up like that, and we'll just do a little bit more here as well. Okay, just to widen the eyes. And then again, let's just make this guy look a little bit cross. Coming down here. There are some really neat plugins out there for Maya as well that you could use to do blend shapes and stuff like that, that keeps the surface from sort of bowing and stuff like that. There's one called the Next tool, and that's really, really excellent. I've used that a few times. So have a look out for that if you can get hold of it. Great. So that's really good, and it stops the mesh sort of collapsing in on itself and you're creating blend shapes. It kind of keeps the forms of everything as if there was underlying bone and muscle there. So yeah, have a look for that. And one more. We'll just do one more blend shape here, and we'll just make this like a mouth sort of frown type expression. Okay, like so. Okay, now I'm not doing the end one because purely for the fact that what I was going to suggest is that you keep a spare one every time so you can create a new one. Otherwise you're going to have to keep going back, extracting the head. So always keep a default spare one so you can just keep duplicating along until you're finished with your blend shapes and stuff. Okay, so that's all good. So what the other thing you need to do now is name these. So I'm going to name this mouth or left LT mouth frown. Okay. Okay, LT brow frown as well. We'll call that LT brow up. Brow up. Okay. And we'll call this left smile. LT SMIL E. Okay, so they're all done. So what we need to do now is just grab them like so, as you would a normal blend shape, and just for argument's sake what I'm going to do is open up our animation menu set here, go to create deformers, open up blend shape like so, check that topology is off, okay, and leave yourself on default and just hit create and you should be ready to go. So as you can see here in the channel box in the inputs, our blend shapes node has now appeared, and you can see our mouth frown, our brow frown, our left brow up and our left smile. So with a bit of luck, if I've done this in the correct way and the correct order, you can now see our blend shapes are now working, and that's all because the vertex order has stayed the same on the model itself. Okay, so there we go. So I'm just mixing these up, having a laugh for a minute. Okay, so you can now do that to your heart's content without worrying about too much. And also, as I said, do download our free mirroring blend shapes tutorial that we have on the site. It's going to be worth it because it will save you hours of pain of going left to right, and so on. Okay, so that's all good. The other thing as well, I do want to point out, although we will be doing some rigging and stuff like that. We're going to skin this to the skeleton in the next couple of episodes. I may actually divide this up so we've got a bit more sort of topology to play with for the actual rig. So you may want to create the blend shapes after, because obviously you're going to be, if you do smooth the mesh itself, using subdivisions, you will add sort of more polish to it. So you may want to do this sort of bit afterwards. It's entirely up to you, because you can obviously use the character like this. I'm a great believer in simplicity when it comes to doing this stuff. So it may well be worth just keeping it like this. If you can weight the character good enough, when it comes to skinning it on the skeleton, if you can weight that good enough with this low res mesh, then that's great. But otherwise, do have a sort of think about that first as well. you may want to divide it up just so you've got a bit more control over the mesh and stuff like that, and you've got a bit more to paint on. So it's just one of those things worth bearing in mind anyway. So we've got this all sort of rigged up, and what we can do, we can name this. Okay, so we can call this Alien Blends. Okay, so we can call it that. Now the problem we got here is, I mean, what I really hate doing is when you want to select a blend shape in Maya, most of the time you're sort of looking at selecting the mesh, and then the mesh goes green, and then you've got to go in there and then open all this up and have a look and all this kind of stuff, just to see what the expressions are doing, because, you know, if you're zoomed out like that, you can't really see much because the mesh is all sort of, you know, the highlighted mesh is sort of starting to bunch up together like so. So what I like to do is I like to add a little control. So if I go to File, Import, and we're going to use the elbow PVC, which was the arrow, if you recall, on the back of the elbows that we use for the pole vector constraints in a couple of chapters back. And what I'm going to do is just bring that up like so, and we're going to rotate this. Okay, so I'm just going to rotate this down. Okay, like so. And in fact, it might be worth just facing it forward. Let's do that. Okay. Okay, there we go. And now I'm just going to delete history and freeze the transforms. And what we'll do, we'll call that blend control, or facial shapes control. Okay. Facial shapes CTRL. Okay, so that's all good. And what we'll do is we're going to add an attribute to this. Okay, so we're going to modify and add attribute, and we're just going to give it a name, and we'll just call it face controls. Okay, CTRL. Okay, like so, and we'll just add that to that, and that should appear at the bottom. Okay, so that's all good to go. Now what we need to do is connect it up. So if we go to Window, General Editors, and we'll go to Connection Editor. There we go. Now I need to do this in the right order, so if I get it wrong, do forgive me. So it's the control. So if we do that first, reload left, go down. In fact, I think it's the other way around. So if we just grab that and select your blends, okay, and then reload left. Okay, scroll back up and look for envelope. Okay, so we've got envelope there, and then if we grab that guy and reload right, and then go all the way down. So you want to connect up envelope to face control, like so, and there we go. So now it's got 1 on it, that means it's ready to go. And then all you can do, so we don't have to highlight our character at all. It will just bring up our controls, and already, you know, we can see everything that's going on there. So just might be one of those things that you might want to use. Alright, just to keep everything clean. And then of course, once it's all rigged up, you can parent that to the actual skeleton itself. Okay, so I think that will conclude this chapter for now, and what we'll do in the next one, we'll start sort of finishing bits and pieces off, and then what we'll do is we're going to head off into the world of skinning the character, so it all sort of, the whole mesh then starts to move along with our skeleton and stuff, and hopefully readying it for animations and poses, depending on what you guys want to do. So I hope this particular section has been quite intuitive for you and not too complicated, and I shall see you in the next one. So cheers for now. Okay, welcome to part 8. We're going to start skinning our character to the skeleton, or binding it to the skeleton, as they say, and we're going to be using the smooth bind option for it, because I think you get a better result at the end of the day. It does take a little bit longer to do, however, you know, I think sometimes it's worth it when you go the long route with stuff as well, especially if you get a better result out of it at the end. All I'm going to be concentrating on really for this part of the tutorial is the body itself. I'm not going to be binding the shorts or the top, though the principles are the same when it comes to selecting it and selecting the root of the skeleton and hitting smooth bind. So that's all you have to do with that. So with this character you would end up with 3 skin clusters for the smooth bind options. So that's not a problem for you, really, at the end of the day. So what I'll do first, I'm just going to hide our clothing, because we don't really need it for this particular part of the tutorial. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be binding the body to the skeleton. But first of all, what I'm going to do is create an extra copy of this, and I'm just going to put it back here. We're going to call this proxy, because what I intend to do with that is cut it up later on and use it for animation purposes as a low resolution character. So, you know, we'll cut a lot of the elbow stuff out and just parent the sort of like the arms and stuff to the rest of the joints and stuff. So yeah, that'll all be good to go. So the other thing, what I want to do is just quickly throw this guy on a layer, okay, like so, and we'll call that proxy dis for display underscore dis. Okay, save, and we'll just double check that that's actually on the layer, and we'll hide that, so that's all done. The other thing I did actually notice while I've just sort of been checking things over in between the episodes is that I did actually make a mistake, and earlier on when we set up the set driven keys for our arms. Now if we just click on our control box here and do a forearm twist, you can see the forearm is not twisting, it's the wrist that's twisting, and that's my mistake, and I do apologize. So that is a very quick fix, which we are going to do now. So if we go to Window, Animation Editors, beg your pardon, General Editors, Connection Editor, and we're just going to reload the control box into the left hand side, and if you just select the wrist joint, okay, reload right, okay, and just scroll down to where it says rotate and just open that out, okay, and then in the left hand side of the connection editor, select the forearm twist, and then you can see the rotate X is highlighted. Just deselect that for now, okay, and then go in to the scene again and select the forearm joint, the left forearm joint, reload right, open out the rotate and hit X, and now that should be connected. Okay, so if we go into the attributes, and now the joint rotates, which is great. And all we have to do is again just repeat this for the other side. So again, select the controller, the forearm twist, I'm going to grab the wrist joint, reload that right, open up my rotations, deselect that or unconnect it, and then grab the forearm, reload that right, open that on the rotate, and then just hit rotate X, and it's all good to go. So I do apologise for that. It's a small naughtiness, if you like, on my behalf, in my eagerness to show you how to get all these things put together. And again, just double check that that's all working, and it is, and we're all good to go. So I apologise for that. Okay, so show last hidden. Hopefully, there we go, there he is, there's our character. And what we're going to do is we're going to be doing, as I said, the smooth bind, and I'm only going to be concentrating on the sort of the shoulder area really for this particular part of the tutorial, because it is one of the harder parts to do, so I thought it'd be nice if we just go through that and have a look. We could add one division, if you like, to our character, so let me just show you. And if we go to mesh and we go to mesh smooth, we could add this one division now to our character, because you know, this is our high-end guy, this is our high-res character. Because we've got our proxy just here, we could then use that, as I said, you know, we can cut it up into little bits and just parent the body parts or the fingers and stuff to the respective joints. We could do it that way, so which is what we are going to do. So for this, we're going to be looking at a smoothed character of 1, okay, in our divisions, and I'm just going to delete the history for that, so it gets rid of that smooth node. So our character is now a nice high-res character. Previously, as well, we looked at blend shapes. You will have to do, you know, your blend shapes from this head now, as opposed to the low resolution. You could still use the low resolution character to skin here, and then just, you know, use the keyboard 3, you know, preview smooth when it comes to doing the final renders and animation and stuff. You could do it that way, but for this I've chosen to do it this way anyway. So okay, so let's crack on. So I've done that, and we're going to go up to our animation menu set, and we're going to open up our skin bind, smooth bind, and let's open that up. Okay, like so. And what we're going to do, we're going to select our mesh, and then we're going to select our skeleton. Okay, so really you want to pretty much leave it as just reset your settings and just have a look at this stuff here. For the max influences, really, this really limits the number of joints to be assigned to a single point. Okay, so this is say at the moment this is 5 joints are going to influence 1 point on the mesh, and for me I don't really like that kind of thing. So because you just end up you're just chasing around the houses. So I tend to use 2 to 3, and I think for this occasion we're going to use 3. The drop-off rate is like anything else, it's a fall-off and how much influence the joints have. So this was really telling Maya how far away from the point it can look for joints to assign to. A higher drop-off assigns joints to the closest point. So if I put 4, our joint here might look for some points sort of over here, whereas if I put let's say 7 in, it will only look for points sort of as far as here. Okay, so that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to hit bind skin, and we should be pretty much ready to go. And as you can see, the other thing as well, Maya has coloured all our joints nicely as well. And if we select the skin, you can now see that the mesh itself is now greyed out as far as translations and rotations and scales, etc. are done. You can still select it, but you will now end up sort of causing damage, if you like, if you start pulling it around. Okay, so just be aware of that. Okay, so we're using the smooth bind, and let's just have a look. So you can now see that everything's connected. I've now grabbed my wrist controller, and I've got my move tool, and as you can see, I'm moving this around, and we've got some nastiness going on in this sort of chest area down here, and we're going to be concentrating on just this area alone for this tutorial. As you can see, it's not very nice. The arms aren't too bad there actually, in the elbow, so that's quite nice. Probably just a little bit of a tweak to do in there, but I mean that's fairly straightforward. But really, for this exercise, we're going to be looking at the chest and shoulder area here. That's going to be the worst sort of real affected sort of area. So because the other thing as well, the arms up, you get these sort of effects going on. So there's a lot of sort of rotation and things going on in this area. So that's why I thought we'd use that for this part of the exercise. I'm not going to wait and paint the weights for this whole body in this part of the tutorial, because it just takes way too long. So what I'll do is, once we're done on this particular chapter, I'm going to go through and using the same techniques, paint the weights up for the rest of the character and also the clothing as well. So let's get started. So I think what we need to do is get into the arm into a position where it looks pretty nasty, like there. So that's not good at all. And yeah, let's get cracking. So if you just want to select the skin and go to skin, edit smooth skin, and go to paint weights tool, and that should come up, and there we go. So we're looking at the moment at the left collar, okay, and that's having a lot of influence on this area here. And you have a couple of options in here. You'll replace values and add values and stuff like that. Most of the time you'll be using add, which is usually the safest route to go. If you have a bit more experience, you can start to use the replace as well, which is what I'll be doing as well. So just sort of take note of how I'm sort of jumping backwards and forwards between things. But a lot of the time you will tend to use add, because you'll be adding to the joints. You should really add to the joints the values and not sort of take them away. So it's always something worth bearing in mind. So for the left collar, I am actually going to start with using replace on this particular part of the exercise, because we've got weights in there that we don't want that area affected by that collar. So what we can do is hopefully go in there and have a look at this and see what happens. So I'm actually going to bring that back to that area. Let's have a look here. That's the area we don't want. We don't want the left, I do beg your pardon, not the collar. We don't want the shoulder to be affecting it. So I'm just going to drop the values to 0 and hit replace for that. So hopefully this should all now go back out. So there we go. So that's, you know, that's a nice easy fix there straight away for that area. And you know, although the skin does slide around around the rib cages and stuff like that, what we can do is just get this to look, you know, look nice, you know, and we can start to, you know, have a better looking character already. And you know, you can see in the space of that couple of sort of brushes and stuff, it's all starting to make a bit more sense now. And again, you know, go in, take your time, because this is not you know, this isn't easy to do all the time. You know, it's sometimes as well, it's a case of horses for courses. You know, not everybody likes rigging. It's like, you know, I love modeling, you know, but you know, I'm not into male scripting and stuff like that. So, you know, this is, to me, this is sort of part of modeling as well. But at the same time, you know, it's not. You know, this is like set up for animation, you know, things like this. But I've done a lot of this over the years and stuff, and it's all looking pretty good here. So so there we go. So that's all sort of come back. And one other thing to take note of with this stuff is the smooth. Now, be very, very careful with that, as you can end up with points popping all over the place. You know, if you start going, oh, I want to smooth this bit, I want to smooth that bit, you know, you can end up with points going, you know, way off. So that is something that I would be really careful about as well if you're using that. You know, get everything perfect first, in terms of weights as best as you can get it, and then if you get a few strays, then, you know, go in there and start to, you know, smooth it out a little bit, but just do it bits at a time. You know, you have to be patient with this stuff, because otherwise, you know, you end up having to just start again. So I'm just going to go in and smooth, and of course you've got an opacity here as well. You know, so just be sensible about it. You know, there's no massive, you know, rush to get it all done. I mean, as much as we all want to get our stuff done, you know, just sort of be patient with it and take it as it comes. Also, you know, you can see here I'm using the smooth, and it's just sort of balancing out, you know, bits and pieces as well. Okay, and I'm just going to nip around to the back here, and there you go. So you can see that's all coming into shape now, and just up here as well. So the shoulders are a very big problem area. They always are. I think unless you're using you know, Maya has muscle and stuff as well, so that can really help with deformations and stuff like that. So again, so what we want to do is start to test out, you know, what's going on up here, you know, and start to really sort of bring it, you know, forward and back. I mean, I'm quite happy with the way that's looking already. I mean, you know, that's looking real nice. You know, a couple of little issues here and there, but I mean, that's looking pretty good for straight out of the box there. So, you know, so yeah, look, you know, that's deforming quite nicely. We've got a little bit of pinching going on and a little bit of squash for this part of the chest. So we're just going to jump in. You know, we're going to go back in and have another look. So let's have a look. So let's see what the add is going to do this time. It probably will push that in if yeah, there we go. So that's the wrong value to have on there. So I'm just going to again drop that, take the weight of the shoulder out of a lot of this, although like I said, a lot of the time you will use add to add, you know, the values to the joints. Obviously 0, the value of 0 here is not adding anything. I'm using replace at the moment, and a value of 1 will add, you know, or make it whiter as well, and so, you know, it will stop your joints from moving pretty much. So let's just take the value out of there just a little bit more from the shoulder. Okay, like so, and I think that's pretty good. I'm using a Wacom pen here, so, you know, I can get in and just really, you know, just tickle it, you know, and make it nice. So and then you can go in and grab the collar and then just start smoothing weights alternately. So we did the influence of 3 on the joints, so we are actually looking at 3 sort of areas here. We've got the back there as well, that's also, you know, influencing this area as well. So, you know, it is, you know, this is keeping them relatively close and stuff in order for us to be able to paint the weights and stuff. And I'm just smoothing those out as well there now, so that's all looking good. The other area that we will look at, I'm just going to smooth this off just around here, and you will have to keep going backwards and forwards, testing your weights and stuff like that. So at the moment that's looking not bad at all, you know. So, you know, have a look at yourself, you know, see how your arms deform, you know, things like that. And I'm just going to put this guy's arms down to his side here now, and see how that gets on there. That's looking not bad at all. And you know, you can see here that, you know, although this is down, we can just add a little bit of influence so it does come up a little bit. With Maya 2011, it does have the option of by opening up the skin cluster and changing the skinning method. I mean, I'm using at the moment classic linear, but if you switch to dual quaternion, you know, you can see the effects that it has. It tries to put the volume back. I mean, it's useful. It might be useful for you, but I'm just sticking to the classic linear. Also, for the sake of other people that aren't using Maya 2011 and may not necessarily have this little nugget available to them, so I'm keeping this as simple as possible for everybody out there. So if we just grab our wrist controller and we just move this back, and yeah, we can see that the shoulder's probably a little bit low. It could probably come up a little bit, you know. So we could grab that, and let's have a look. And let's go over to the collar here. And what we can do is we can add. If we just go to add here, and I'm going to keep the opacity down here to about halfway, and the value will keep quite low. And what we'll do is slowly just bring this part of the shoulder up, so it now starts to belong a little bit more to the actual collar, and it may make for a better sort of look on our character here. So this is where things like this are, you know, these things are important, you know. So you can see here, you know, I'm bringing this clavicle back up. In fact, what I'll do, if I just increase the value to 1 and just flood that out with the brush there, okay, so you can see what that's going to do. So I don't want it really sort of being down there too much. And then again, you know, you just go in, take your time, you know, there's no rush, and you know, hopefully keep the volumes and stuff as well. You can also use influence objects. They're very good. You know, you can put like spheres and stuff under here, under the skin, and add it as an influence object, and it will stop things from sort of, you know, bending in on each other and all that kind of stuff. So there's lots of different ways to do it. And again, you've got Maya Muscle, which is available now, has been for quite a while, and you know, that sort of thing can help you, you know, combat, you know, bad deformations and stuff like that. But as I said, you know, I'm trying to do this tutorial for everybody, you know, for those who aren't necessarily using Maya 2011 upwards or anything like that. So, you know, this is for you guys as well. So, you know, sometimes simplicity is always the best way around doing stuff. So just keep it easy. So as you can see, I'm sort of pushing the geometry, if you like, on the body upwards here, just to make for a better looking sort of shoulder area here. And you know, I could really max this out. I could just completely flood this with a value of 1, and then what that would mean is that the shoulder wouldn't really move and wouldn't look very good. Thankfully though, this is a cartoon character, I'm not doing a human, and you know, so I can be a little bit looser with this and stuff, and you know, hopefully no one's going to pick holes in what I'm doing. as can happen on a forum, as we all know. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I'm happy with that. Let's just push this back a little bit, just in there. Okay, so this is adding values to the collar area up here. I'm just trying to just sort of balance it out so not everything looks all sort of bulky and bulgy from the smooth bind. So okay, let's say you're happy with that, and so what we can do now is go in and smooth some stuff out. Okay, so just go in, smooth things out, just make it all look a bit better. You know, again, don't flood it. Don't use that flood because you'll end up in all sorts of trouble. So I can't stress that enough. You know, just go around and patiently paint those areas that need that love and attention. Okay, and there we go. So that's looking pretty good. I'm just going to smooth this back out here. There we go. And of course, you know, you can increase the size of the brush and all that kind of stuff as ever, you know, like you would normally, you know, if you were painting, you know, paint effects and all that kind of stuff, and you know, using the sculpt poly tool, you know, it's all the same commands. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So I'm happy with that, the way that's happening now. So let's just smooth this off towards the back here. And there we go. So the other thing as well, let's just go in and just check the other joints that are influencing the area as well. So there we go. So that'll all sort of have its own sort of place of doing stuff as well. Okay, so let's just check the collar, and that's all fine. Collar once again, that's good. And the shoulder, so that's all good as well. And we're all pretty good to go, I think. Okay, so there you go. So what you need to do now is, again, of course, you do need to check your deformation, so to see what's going on. Okay, so we're not looking too bad, you know. And of course, I'm just using the one control here for the arm itself, for the shoulder. And don't forget, you know, you've got the shoulder control or the collar control here. So let's have a look at that, and let's just see how that's going to react. And there you go. See, that's not good at all. So what you'll need to do is then go in and adjust that. So you can see around this area, that's not good at all. So let's get cracking, and we'll jump back in there, and we'll try and sort that out. So that's everything is now sort of pointing. Let's see what we've got. Okay, so it's the collar there. So let's have a look, see if we can get rid of that, take the value out of there. Yeah, so we can do that. So the collar's had a fair effect there. So just by hitting replace and taking the value down, you know, we can now push this back. Okay, like so. And I'm not going to do it all the way. I'm just going to do it because, you know, you want some of this to come up, because it would. Okay, so yeah, just things like that. You know, we'll just push it all and just make it a lot nicer. And again, and when you're happy with that, you know, just go in and just paint a little bit of smoothing in there as well, just to help it. Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to check these areas as well. And if we go back and forth, we should be pretty good. Okay, and I'll just check there. Well, there we go. So you got just sort of, so there's 3 areas of influence there. So I've gone right down to back 3, you know, just to make sure everything's working okay. And again, just smooth it out, just make sure everything's okay, like so. Alright, so that should sort of cover that, I hope. So let's have a look at this. So if we go and grab our control. So that's not too bad. If we just go back up to our there we go, let's Z that back out, zero that back out rather, and so that's not too bad there. Again, a little bit of influence just in there, so we could probably again adjust this, and let's have a look, see what we can give that to, and let's have a look if B3 can be added to. And what we'll do, just drop the opacity down, and there we go. So we can just add a small area of influence there. Okay. So it is backwards and forwards, going around, just making sure that everything is working nicely. And what we'll do, we'll just bring that out there as well. Okay, so you can have some diverse effects, but you just have to keep jumping backwards and forwards, as I keep saying, and just making it all look pretty good. Okay, so as you can tell, you can see why I'm not going to do the whole body, because it would just take too long to actually do. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to jump back. So as you can see there, that's looking nice now, and there'll probably be an effect somewhere as we do this, and there we go. So that's looking so much better already. Okay, so that's a nice bit of deforming going on there. And again, you know, it's just kind of like, if you want to look at it this way, is like when you're doing your UVs, you know, you've got to have a good amount in order to get some good control. And this is another one of those cases, which is why I did actually divide the mesh up, you know, give it a smooth, you know, it's another level of control in that area. But, you know, even while I'm, you know, moving this guy around, he's you know, he's very happy, you know, it's very nice and light and everything else. And I'm only using a 32-bit PC here, so, you know, so it's all looking pretty good. And again, let's just go back up and just test this collar again. So I did notice back here on the trapezoid there, we have got a small issue on there. So what we'll do, we'll just jump back in, and we'll go in and find the collar, and there it is. And what I think we need to do is, if we hit add and just see what happens first. So that's actually going to be the neck, I think. But let's see if we can smooth it out, just see what happens first. So it might just be a case of that. And let's have a look. Okay, so let's go and see what we've got. Let's do the left collar. And that's better. We'll just hit the replace and just bring that back like so. Okay, that's much nicer, that's better. I'm liking that. Okay, that's good, good. And then we'll just bring this back to about here, and we'll just smooth that out. Okay, and then what we might need to do is just go and find our neck. There we go. So that'll be N1, and we'll just smooth that out just to make sure. Okay, so we're all good there. Okay, so for now we're going to leave that there. I think I'm quite happy with the way that's going, so I'm going to leave that as is. Now, the other thing that you probably are asking, oh my god, I've got to paint the entire character. No, you haven't. You can do one side, and you can mirror your skin weights. So it's really pretty straightforward. So once I've zeroed this arm back out, you have to make sure everything's back in back in its sort of place really for ease of use and stuff. So that's all there, that's good. So let's just have one more look. Okay, so this is without using the actual collar itself, the collar control or the shoulder control, and it's all looking pretty damn good if you ask me. I'm quite pleased with that. Probably a little bit of a tickle here and there, just on the front there. Nothing drastic. Just around here, I think we could do with just a little look at. And let's open that up and have a look. And let's just jump down to the collar. So what I think we can do is just grab the collar itself and let's hit replace, drop the opacity and do a small value itself there. 1, I think there shouldn't be too bad. Okay, so let's have a look and just have a look here, and let's see if we can take it out of there. And let's add just a tiny bit just to bring that forward. And that's not too bad. And again, just smooth this out. Okay, so we've got a little bit of strangeness going on here, and that's quite a good point. Sometimes you're not going to get every single point, and a really great way of looking at this stuff, I mean, as you can see here, it's not too bad. I mean, I could hit smooth using keyboard 3 for this mesh, like so, and it's not so bad. But if you're still going in and perfecting stuff, a really great way of doing it is if you just go up to Window and go to Component Editor. Okay, and what you can do, if you go to your smooth skin, and let's just have a scroll through, and let's have a good look here. So if we just go to verts and we select a few of these, just here like so. Okay, what you can do, you can see what areas or what joint that these parts actually belong to. Let me just turn off my reflection. I've got reflection on there. Let's just turn that off for a moment. Okay, so you can see here that these particular verts belong, this is saying it belongs to B5. Okay, but the value is only 0.380 for the weight of that particular vertex. So this means that there's more weight being applied to another joint. Okay, so if we have a look through, there we go. See, the left collar has an influence on this area. So there's things like this that you need to be aware of. So if I just do the 1 point here, and let's just have a scroll along. So it says it belongs to the left collar. And let's see if it belongs to anybody else. There we go, there, left shoulder. So if I double click that, hit 0, it pops back out. Okay, so there's things like that you need to be aware of. I mean, I could add probably 0.5 to that. So I'll take it back a bit. And again, you can go in and you can tweak that. You might want to put that there. And then this one here, let's have a look. That says that belongs to B5. So if we just make that 0, let's just see what happens. See, that pops out and pops back in rather, and that's saying that it really wants to be pulled the other way. So I would say 0.6, just to bring that out like so, or maybe even a bit more. So what that's going to be doing is taking weight from another area of influence and adding it to this one. Okay, and we'll do the same with this one. And what we'll do, we'll make that 0.5, and in fact we can make that 0.55. So there's other little ways to fine-tune stuff if you find that you're not hitting the right mark all the time with the paint weights tool. But this is more of a way to just sort of finalize, start doing stuff, just to get stuff to pull in the right direction. So I'm going to make this 0.55 like so, and that's going to start pulling stuff out as well. So, which is really, really neat. So you can see here, you know, it's all starting to come back into a better sort of look. And again, just here, I'm going to make that 0.5. You don't have to make everything 0.5. I'm just using this as a, you know, just like a sort of stepping stone really, just to get it to go where it needs to go. And here, let's do 5.2. No, that's not going to do it there. Let's try 0.6. And there we go. So that one bumps back out, I beg your pardon. So these are the other sort of things and other ways of getting your verts, you know, areas of influence to behave themselves. So it's always worth looking at that as well. It's a really good way of doing stuff. So let's have a look at that. We've gone in and we've done that. Let's just okay. So really, it's not looking too bad. You know, we could probably, you know, bring that back out still a little bit more, but I'm going to leave it there for now. I want to just run through one more thing, and then we're going to end this chapter here. And yeah, we'll get this done for the next chapter. So let's pop this control object back to 0. Okay, like so. And what we want to do is really get all these weights onto the other side, which is really cool, which is what I was mentioning earlier. You can mirror the skin weights. So if we grab the skin, we go to edit smooth skin, and we go to mirror skin weights. Okay, so we want to go positive to negative, okay, YZ, and hit apply, and then hopefully the joints on the right hand side of our character will now be exactly the same. And there you go. So when you've done, you know, the rest of the character on one side, you know, all you've got to do is just mirror those skin weights and you're good to go. So there you go. So hopefully that has given you an insight into painting weights. And remember, keep those values low, you know, just do a bit at a time, test it, bit at a time, test it. And hopefully you should have a fairly good character. As we said, we did quite well with the deformations on the elbows, like so. So you've only really got a little bit of stuff to pull out there, you know, just to make everything sort of, you know, blend together almost, like, you know, like your own arms and stuff like that. So have a look at that and see how good you can make those look. You may want to leave them as is, because as with everything else in here, there's plenty to be getting on with for this. If I just hit the rotate here, you know, it's not too bad. There's a little bit going on in here, a little bit funky and stuff, you know. So, you know, there's lots to look at. And let's do the front one here. You know, when you do your back bending and stuff, I mean, it's not too bad. Look, it just needs smoothing out some of it. I mean, you're not going to bend completely, you know, and there as well. So it's all looking pretty good. So with a bit of luck, you'll have some nice results sooner rather than later. So until the next chapter, I'm going to get on and weight this guy complete with the clothing and stuff, and we will see you in part 9. So cheers for now.